Okay, you are live, Mayor Hudson.
Okay, thank you. Let's call to order the joint special meeting of the City Council and the Planning Commission. It's December 21st, and before the roll call, the city attorney has an announcement.
Good evening, Council and Commissioners. Assembly Bill 361 suspends certain provisions of the Brown Act, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I'll ask the mayor to recognize me after the roll call to confirm other matters for the record.
Okay, can note the roll, please.
Commissioner Edwards?
Here.
Commissioner Marks?
Here.
Commissioner Wallace?
I'm here.
Vice Chair Alpert?
Here.
Chair Kuznick?
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong?
Here.
Councilmember Perkins?
Here.
Councilmember Zafar?
Here.
Vice Mayor Veros?
Here.
And Mayor Hudson?
Here.
Thank you.
We recognize the city attorney.
Thank you. Based on the responses to the roll call, please let the record reflect that all council members and commissioners can hear the proceedings clearly. And if there are no objections, the record should further reflect that each council member and commissioner believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be council members and commissioners are in fact council members and commissioners. And I see no objection among the panel. So I'll turn the meeting back over to you with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Thank you. The highlight of the evening, the only issue of the evening, is new business, a joint public hearing. This is a West Side Specific Plan Amendment and El Nido Senior Assisted Living Project, SBA 19-400-1, Development Plan 18-300-01, and I'll let you guys read the rest. The key to this is we have a staff report from Cindy Yee. Cindy, are you with us?
I am here.
Okay. You're up.
Great, thank you. I am going to start sharing my screen as I get there. Wanted to go ahead and start us off here. So as you had just read, the presentation this evening is for the West Side Specific Plan Amendment and El Nido Senior Assisted Living Project. This will be the joint City Council and Planning Commission public hearing that will introduce the project. Tonight, we're going to provide an overview of the project and background and context of the application, and then receive feedback from the City Council and Planning Commission on the project, receive public testimony, and we're recommending continuation to the Planning Commission's next regularly scheduled public hearing to January 18th. So just to start us off here with a location to get us oriented, the project is here indicated in that green star on your map of the within the city of Saramone. It's within the West Side Specific Plan area, which is a specific plan that was adopted by the city in 1989 and then most recently amended in 1997. It guides the preservation development of approximately 3,300 acre area on the west side of the city of Saramone. And tonight we're discussing a proposed amendment to the West Side Specific Plan to facilitate the development of the senior assisted living facility. And then just to focus us into where the project is proposed for the senior care assisted living at 19251 Saramone Valley Boulevard at the intersection of Westside Drive and Saramone Valley Boulevard. It has a general plan land use designation currently of single family medium density, and then a Westside Specific Plan designation of park. It's a 0.7 acre parcel. Was created as originally as part of the larger Gelderman property that has been subdivided over time and now is less than an acre. And then just to give you some context, on the parcel is an existing home, the commonly referred to as the El Nido house. You can see the view of the home, which is currently vacant at the corner of Westside Drive and Saramone Valley Boulevard. The house was originally built in the mid 1850s, and shortly after its construction was moved to its current location on Sangamon Valley Boulevard. In 2017, the applicant submitted a development plan review for the Planning Commission's review. Planning Commission provided comments related to the development application and conceptually supported the land use, but was concerned with the scale of the building. Subsequent to the concept plan, in 2019, the applicant filed development plans that are in front of you and attached to your staff report this evening. That proposals for a 3-story building with 48 rooms and 84 beds. Since 2019, the applicant has been working on completeness review, historical resources evaluation, environmental review, and architecture review. So similar to our other specific plan amendments that the city processes, the project will consist of 2 processing tracks. The specific plan amendment is one part of the application review, along with the associated Environmental Quality Act analysis for the specific plan. That would require a recommendation from the Planning Commission and a final determination by the City Council on the specific plan amendment. And then the second track is going to be the development applications for the project entitlement. So in order to approve the development of the senior assisted living facility, along with the associated applications, that would be the reviewing body for those development applications would be the Planning Commission. So just to start from the top with the general plan land use, as I mentioned previously, the site where the senior assisted living facility is proposed has a general plan land use designation currently of medium density residential. That amendment to the general plan was done and approved by the city in 2011. The staff report provides a little bit more background, but essentially prior to the medium density residential, the site had previously had a general plan land use of park. And so since 2011, with that change, it now has a single family medium density residential land use. Single family medium density is primarily associated with residential uses. Detached single family units, 0 lot line units, and townhomes are what you would typically find in a single family medium density land use. The other governing document that is tied to this parcel is the West Side Specific Plan. And the West Side Specific Plan is supposed to provide guidance specific to this West Side planning area. As I mentioned, that plan was adopted in 1989, and the land use for the site on Sangamon Valley Boulevard has had a park land use designation since the adoption of that specific plan. In 2011, when the city approved the general plan amendment to single family medium density residential, the West Side Specific Plan was not amended at that time. That amendment was deferred until future development proposals were to be presented to the city, which is where we currently stand with this application proposing to amend the specific plan to align with the general plan land use. The park land use designation in the West Side Specific Plan allows for public and private recreation sites and facilities. It would require a specific plan amendment to allow for senior assisted living as a land use on this property. So as I mentioned, the 2 project processing tracks, the first part of the processing would be the West Side Specific Plan amendment. And as detailed and summarized in this slide in the staff report, there are 7 proposed amendments that the applicant is requesting, including changes to the specific plan goals, community design policies, amending the land use from park to medium density residential. And then changes that would facilitate the development of the senior care facility, including increasing the maximum allowed lot coverage as well as the maximum allowed floor area ratio. In addition to the 7 proposed amendments, the city would also like to take this opportunity to add one additional recommended specific plan amendment, which would be to align the inclusionary housing policy in the specific plan with the citywide inclusionary housing ordinance, which was adopted a couple of years ago. And so taking this opportunity as part of this amendment to incorporate that language with this specific plan change. And then that second development, the processing track would be the development applications. Applicant has filed a concurrent application for site development. So if the West Side specific plan were to be amended to medium density residential, then the senior assisted living facility development proposal, which includes a development plan, architectural review, land use permit and tree removal applications, would then need to be considered by the Planning Commission to include a construction of a nearly 28,000 square foot primary building, and then a relocation of the El Nido home to the eastern property line that would then be part of the operation of the care facility. Commercial businesses does require, for care facilities, does require a state license for operation, as well as a land use permit to authorize the use in a medium density residential zone. So that would be part of the action of the Planning Commission. As the Commission Council is familiar with any specific plan amendments, there is a requirement that we have a series of public hearings in front of the Planning Commission. We have minimum of 3 public hearings. After a recommendation by the Planning Commission on a 4/5 vote, that recommendation is then referred up to the City Council for their consideration and would require a 4/5 vote to approve such specific plan amendments. In addition to the public hearing requirements, there's also a California Environmental Quality Act requirement for environmental analysis. There is a mitigated negative declaration that's currently being prepared to analyze the project's impacts and is expected to be provided at a subsequent public hearing, starting with the Planning Commission. And then just real briefly, I know the applicant also has a presentation of their proposal, but just to get us oriented with the project, this is the proposed site plan. West Side Drive would be on the bottom of your screen. On the left-hand side of your screen is where San Ramon Valley Boulevard would be. The entrance into the development would be from West Side Drive, an entry mid-block, and then an exit only closer towards the corner of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And then just some renderings to show the views from San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And then again, the top elevation showing the view from San Ramon Valley Boulevard. The lower picture shows the view from West Side Drive. And then the top picture shows the west elevation, which would be on the interior side opposite of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And then from the rear elevation, which is the south elevation, is on the lower hand side of your screen. And then the last slide here is really just to highlight the development standards, something that the Planning Commission will need to consider as part of their development application review. But it's worth noting that as part of the specific plan amendment, there would be a request to modify the lot coverage and FAR requirements to facilitate the project. And so just wanted to highlight that as part of the development standards. Those are the two that currently will need an amendment to the West Side specific plan. And then the other development standard to note is the parking standard, which proposes 30 parking spaces where 40 parking spaces would be required of this type of land use based on the land use zoning ordinance. So that's essentially my staff report. We're again looking for feedback from the commission and council this evening, as well as to receive public testimony, and then a request to continue the public hearing for the Planning Commission to January 18th. So that concludes my presentation. I can stop sharing my screen.
Okay. I understand next we have the applicant has a presentation, and then we could take questions on of staff.
He does. Christina, would you mind promoting Sohail Siddiqui? Then I will again be sharing my screen and running the PowerPoint from my end here.
Okay, and I can't see any pictures, so Sohail, if you're with us, you have the floor, and maybe a picture will pop up, or I'll just hear a voice out of the mist.
Well, at least I can see on
There you are.
on the
Okay.
screen, along with my wife to my right.
Okay.
If I could ask my other team members to be added, not right away, but in next few minutes, I would like to add Ed Nowak, Dilip Kishnani, Kevin Torbat, and Charlie Wilson. These are the people, they will partner with me during the presentation, so it's important that they are online as well. Well, good evening, everybody. Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, planning commissioners, we would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share the details of our project with all of you and why it should receive your due consideration. Here's the outline of our topics that we will discuss today. But more importantly, we are here to answer your questions. We'll start with our introduction, followed by a brief look back at how we got here. Next, we will discuss our project scope and the operating model. We would also like to describe our approach thus far, the value of our project to the neighborhood and the city of San Ramon, our responses to the comment from the Architectural Review Board, and lastly, we will share some of the public feedback that you have been receiving, we have been receiving, and what is available on social media. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So this property is currently owned under our LLC called El Nido Foundation LLC. And one thing you will notice throughout that we are making a conscious effort to maintain connectivity with the history of the property that goes back over 120 or 170 years actually. We have been living in this neighborhood for over 23 years. To my right here is my wife, Rafia Mustafa. She is my better half, and she has been partnering with me throughout in this project. We have lived in this neighborhood for last 23 years. We started with our first home in Four Oaks community. We used to live on 190 Woodborough Way. And subsequently, we moved up the hill into Henry Ranch area. But overall, 23 years in this neighborhood, we have raised 3 boys. All 3 of them have gone from Neil Armstrong to Pine Valley to Cal High. In fact, our youngest one is currently a 9th grader at Cal High. It is important to highlight that we are not the typical developers. In fact, the way I describe myself is a coincidental developer. When I retired from PwC back in 2017, I was trying to find something to keep myself busy, but I always wanted to do something that has that sort of community service element to it. So I picked up two projects. One of them was this, the senior care facility. And then second is up in Truckee, where I'm working with the hospital, and we are developing a residential compound for the hospital staff over there. But one thing that I really want to highlight is the inspiration, where it came from for this project. I have an 85-year-old mother. At the time, she was 81 years old. And incidentally, she had some spine problem. She fell down, she broke her back, she had a spine surgery. So she spent 2 months in a nursing facility up in Walnut Creek. And frankly, our experience over there was a little bit mixed. And I would candidly say that those facilities really don't live up to the expectations, at least I had for my mother, you know. And this is where we felt that, hey, coming up with a concept that will allow us to develop a facility where we can put our elders and give them a home-like experience and keep them connected with the community. So that is where the inspiration has come from. And I've shared this with many of you in the past, but there are some new people on both Planning Commission as well on the City Council. It is important for them to hear that. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So continue with the introduction. Can you move to the next slide? Thank you. So we are truly blessed with a very qualified team that is working with us on this project. Our chief architect, Ed Novak, is based in Livermore. He is a very experienced and seasoned architect. Our civil engineers are from an organization called Sterling Consultants. They're led by Dilip Krishnani, who is the principal engineer. And then Kevin Torbett is the project engineer. Our landscape architect is Charlie Wilson, and all of these people are online and they'll be happy to answer questions. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So I thought I should take a few minutes just to share with you our journey since 2017, since I bought this property. So when we purchased this property back in 2017, the initial plans were that we will take the Harlan house that sits on this property and we will relocate it about half a mile or 3/4 of a mile south onto Dr. Starkweather's property. Unfortunately, during our discussions with the city and the expectations of Dr. Starkweather, it was very difficult to align the interests of both parties. And frankly, those discussions fell apart. That left us actually hanging right down in the middle. We had no idea what to do. And I must acknowledge here that, as I said earlier, I'm not a developer by profession, and this was my first gig. So I was really scratching my head to figure out what to do with this house. We reached out and talked to many stakeholders, including the city management, including the mayor. We went in front of Open Space Committee. I think Mr. Wallace is here, he can attest to that. We talked to the planning department. We spoke to some other planning commissioners. We got in front of the Park Community Services Commission. Also talked to the San Ramon Historic Foundation as well as Historic Society. Now, none of these stakeholders were very passionate about saving the house, but nobody had any concrete idea what to do with it. Finally, I must acknowledge our esteemed city manager, Joe Gordon, came to me and said, Sohail, I think the best thing you can do for the city and for your project is to keep the house on the property and preserve it. Now, I didn't even realize, and I'm sure Joe didn't realize how expensive of a proposition that was. But we said, okay, let's think about it. I went in and talked to the Historic Foundation, and I got a very enthusiastic response from them. So that's how we came sort of to this point where we are today, and the design that you have. Now, that change in direction that Joe suggested made us change the entire design, and that took a lot of time for us. So the 4 years have been sort of back and forth and so many things going on. And when you add COVID in the mix, 4 years have just gone by and we have not seen any benefits of our investment. Anyhow, can we move to the next slide, please? So the final project scope is obviously we are going to preserve the house, which is going to be quite expensive. As you all know, and if you look at the pictures that Cindy shared, the house has been deteriorating over the last years, and something needs to be done, and something needs to be done very quickly. Now, in order to preserve the house to the way it used to be, we'll have to rebuild the porch the way it used to be. There used to be a kitchen in the rear of the building. We need to add that. There were some detached bathrooms in the past. We are suggesting that we build an attached bathroom in the back as well. Obviously, the roof needs to be replaced and new doors and new windows. So that is sort of what we will do for the house itself. The house use will be, we will use the ground floor as the common area for our operation and also as the dining area for our tenants. We also we intend to use some of the features from that era of 1850s into the design of our building, the main building, the care facility building. It, as Cindy said, it will have 48 rooms and a maximum capacity of 84 beds. Now that is if we are lucky to have a full occupancy, and the rooms that are double occupancy room will have 2 tenants, which is highly unlikely, but nonetheless, the maximum capacity will be 84 beds. We will build parking, underground parking under the building. So that will allow us to make a use of the surface space as much as possible. So we can move on to the next slide. I also quickly want to share with you what our operating model would be. And again, this is just a very high level detail. Happy to provide more context as we move forward. But we intend to hire a reputable operating partner. We, both my wife, as much as we love this kind of work, we just don't have the right experience. And we recognize that we want somebody who has been doing it and doing it well. So we have been talking to multiple organizations. Some of them are listed here, Sunrise, Watermark, and few others. But at the end of the day, once the project, we get the entitlement, that's when we will know exactly who our operating partner would be. We are planning to create about 40 to 50 net new jobs for the city. These employees that we will have will include an overall facility director, a couple of vocational nurses, caregivers, chef and a kitchen staff, housekeeping staff. Now, we intend to provide full service for all of our tenants. That will include housekeeping, the meals, the shuttle service, and what have you. Everything that is associated with these kind of facilities, we intend to provide. Now, one of the things that I want to highlight is our work hours and the shift that our staff will work on. And we have designed that specifically based on the feedback we got from our neighbors. There was a little bit of concern, which actually to some degree is not valid, but we heard it. And that is that, hey, the potential impact to traffic during the key peak hours. And the peak hours, at least for this neighborhood, is mostly around the school hours. So it's in the morning between 8 and 9 o'clock, 8 and 8:30, I would say. And in the evening, in the afternoon, when schools close, between 2:30 and 3:30. So what we did was we said, let's design our shift so that our people changeover comes around the peak hours. So our first shift will start at 6 a.m. and they will work till 2 p.m. Second shift will start from 2 p.m. and they will work until 10 p.m. And then the last shift, obviously the graveyard shift will be from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So partly that is designed to address some of the concern that we were receiving from our neighbors on the impact of traffic. Can we move to the next slide, please? Now, I also want to make sure we communicate how collaborative we have been throughout this process. Now, very first Planning Commission hearing we had, that was a concept review in 2017. I was new to this gig. I had no idea what to anticipate. So when I showed up to the public hearing, I was taken aback by the pushback we were receiving from the neighbors. And right there, I decided that, hey, we just cannot develop and design this project in a vacuum. We got to engage our neighbors. So we did. And what we did was we organized series of meetings, town hall meeting at our own house where we invited many neighbors. We had multiple open houses event at the property. We worked with the two homeowners associations. One is the townhomes that are behind our property and the single family homes across our property. So we've been working with them. We have also held one-on-one meetings with the neighbors. And we also try to raise awareness of our project through social media. In fact, there's a video out there which was done by neighborhood guys, which talk about our vision and concept behind this project. And it is available to public. I'll be happy to share that with you if you haven't seen it. But we engage these people. So we engage all of these people precisely for the reason we were hearing some feedback that we wanted to make sure it is addressed. And fortunately, some of our neighbors who got engaged, they will attest to it that we listened to them, we made adjustment based on their feedback. One of the key feedback which Planning Commission gave us and the neighbors gave us, the initial design was just too overwhelming, too big for the size of the property. And we needed to scale it down quite a bit, which we did. And then we got a lot of feedback from our neighbors regarding the setbacks, landscape design, and the attractiveness of our design and the landscape for the facility. And we addressed that, and many neighbors have acknowledged that. Talking about additional collaboration, we've worked very closely with the San Ramon Historic Foundation. They have been our partners for the last 3 years. They have been giving us very candid feedback on the design of the project, and they will continue to play a very proactive role as we get into the design and preservation of the house. They will be our key stakeholders. They will be our key advisor. We also work closely with Bev Lane from San Ramon Valley Historic Society. And we also have been engaged with the city official throughout, and we have been keeping them informed of all of our efforts. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So I also want to talk about the value of this project to the neighborhood and to the city of San Ramon. Now, one of the biggest value of our project is the preservation of the oldest standing structure in the entire county. The city of San Ramon and others have been trying to save this house for the past 30 years, but no one was willing to pay to preserve it. My wife and I are spending our own money to save our city's heritage. And that is the biggest contribution we are making to the city. And I'm pretty confident once it is all said and done, our city will be very proud of this landmark. Other benefits that we are trying to achieve here for the city and for the neighborhood is we are addressing a acute shortage of facilities for our seniors, these type of facilities. Now, we all live in a very beautiful neighborhood. I think everybody would agree that San Ramon is probably one of the most beautiful cities in Northern California. And the lifestyle here is probably the most attractive one. Now, there was a lot of comment, hey, we should not have this kind of facility in this neighborhood. My point of view and my wife's point of view is it is cruel for us to say that once you grow and come to a certain age, you need to be shipped out of here. You don't belong here. I tell you, if we can enjoy this beautiful city as much as we do, our elderly parents, grandparents, our friends and neighbors, those people who are senior, they deserve equal right to live in this neighborhood and enjoy this neighborhood. We are one of the things that we also are doing is obviously, and I talked about that, we are adding 40 to 50 net new jobs for the city. I think this is an important contribution. Now, the project itself is probably going to be the quietest type of development that can be done on this facility, given the other alternatives we have. It will have minimal traffic impact and noise impact to the neighborhood. One of the other things that we are trying to introduce is the concept of a neighborhood project. What that really means is we want to invite our youth and other community members to become part of this operation, play a proactive role. Now, let me talk about the youth. What we are doing is what we plan to do is, my children went to high school. They were struggling to find opportunities to develop some credit hours or gain some credit hours for their resumes for their college application. We will invite the youth from our neighborhood to come and do volunteer work and gain that valuable credit for their college applications. We would also like to engage our neighbors, people who possess some kind of talent. Either they know how to play an instrument, they can sing, they know how to play games. I would encourage our neighbors to adopt these seniors. And let's pick one at a time or couple at a time, just adopt and spend some quality time. Now, if some of you have any parents who live in this facility, it's a very depressing situation. These people get abandoned. Nobody really gives them the time and attention they need. And our concept of engaging our neighbors to spend some of this will address that particular point of view. Now, other thing that I also want to highlight, that all of our neighborhoods, the value of our houses, our real estate market depends on the quality of the features a neighborhood offers. And having this type of facility adds the features to the dynamics, and that will have a very positive impact on the neighborhood as well. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, next few slides are, so we did have, as part of our development application, we went through an architectural review board process. So I would like to invite my other team members, my architect, my engineers, and my landscape architect to take over from here. And Ed, if you can take the lead and just walk us through the next few set of slides, please.
Well, good evening. I'm Ed Novak, the architect on the project with Sohail. First slide that we have here is one of our early concept sketches of how the building would lay out and interface with the kind of landscape, on the property. Primary parking was to be all underneath the building, with some surface parking for short-term visits and access. If we can go to the next slide, which you've already seen in Cindy's presentation, these happen to be the east elevation on top and the west elevation underneath, giving indication of how the two buildings will interface with each other. El Nido House obviously sitting very visible and prominent off of San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and our building sitting in behind it. Next slide. And this is the north and south elevations, again, north being on the top and the south on the bottom. This time, I'd like to just briefly talk about how we reacted to the comments from the Architectural Review Board. We modified our detailing. We at one time were trying to mimic the gable styling off of El Nido House, but at their recommendation, they thought we should work more with period details and not be a replication of El Nido House. So we have kind of simplified things back. And again, at this scale, we don't have all the accurate detailed information, but we will develop the kind of fenestration and detailing that would be expected on our little window bays that appear at various spots around our building. The other thing that we did was to try and separate our building from El Nido House through color palette at their suggestion. So we picked a color that we felt would be complementary, yet also have enough contrast that it separated us from what was going on. The only thing that we kind of did was carry our trim color through both buildings, just as kind of a thread to bring the project together. Next slide, please. Also, these are kind of a synopsis of the comments from the review board. I covered the architectural portions. I'll have Dilip and Kevin take care of kind of the civil related questions, and Charlie will review the art landscape stuff.
Hey, Dilip, can you talk about specifically the garage related questions they have?
Sure. This is Dilip Krishnani. If you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll about the first two bullet items. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. On the one-way circulation, especially the garage exit ramp, our grades, we had flattened the grades to the initial grades as you come off the entrance, so the circular entrance to the right to go down to the garage. We have it as a maximum of 18 to 20%, depending on where you are on the left or right going down. And it flattens out around the bend. And so there was concern about the clearance below. So we had to get down at 20% and then flatten out before the curve or before the 90-degree curve into the garage, so that there was enough clearance for all the delivery vehicles and stuff. So we did account for that, and that's why it is steeper ahead before the actual header for the building, below, above. So that was one of the concerns that had come up through the plan check process, and then the final version of that reflects that.
Hey, Charlie, can you talk a little bit about the landscape design?
This is Charlie Wilson, the landscape architect, and one of the things that came up during the review was maybe to incorporate some plant material that's a little more would be more common in the historical era that the house was there, and that was a point well taken. And as we go through the design development of this, we'll definitely look at that. There are some pictures right now. There's almost nothing on site. There's a couple of mature trees, mature oak trees that we're going to save the best one, and a couple of the others that are not in such good shape are going to be removed. There's some trees on San Ramon Valley Boulevard between actually our actual property line and the street that's pretty actually heavily wooded, and we're going to save those. But as far as the actual plant material itself, we'll take a look at incorporating some of the historical items that with the planning the architecture review board suggested.
Yeah, one comment is when we were talking to the architecture review board, they did raise concern about that little strip that is owned by the city and the landscaping that currently exists on that. Their suggestion was it needs to be enhanced. Obviously, we don't own that piece of the strip, and that whatever redesign activities needs to be done, we need to work in collaboration with the city landscaping resources. So
Yeah.
obviously we have duly noted that. We'll highlight that at the right time. By the way, that suggestion came from multiple stakeholders. Some of the elected officials visited the property last year. They also suggested that should we move the house closer to the San Ramon Valley Boulevard, it needs to get a clear visibility from San Ramon Valley Boulevard by sort of redesigning the landscape. And the concept they talked about was, hey, it should not be no different than the way David Glass House looks right now. So we made a note of that. Obviously, this is something that we cannot control on our own. We need to partner with the city to address this particular piece. All right, can we move on to the next slide? Now, this is a very important area, and we have been listening to our neighbors. We have seen a lot of traffic of comments on social media. Cindy has been sharing all the feedback that is flowing up to the commissioners as well as the city council. We are very mindful of that. And honestly, we respect that, but we want to make sure that we at least provide our point of view, how we think they will not be as big of an issue as some of our neighbors think. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we did engage our neighbors very proactively. And what is a distinct difference here is people who got engaged with us, they really have changed their mind. And I will share some of these comments with you, but they have changed they have come around and they have really appreciated our proactiveness to make them part of the process as well and make them feel heard. But then there are a lot of people we invited, they, for whatever reason, did not engage with us, but they were proactive in providing feedback to the city council and the planning commissioners, and very active on the social media as well. So I just want to make sure I address some of those. Now, what I have done is here on this slide, I've kind of put them in various buckets. One of the top one is the impact on traffic. Now, we got to understand the nature of this facility. This is going to be a facility which will house seniors who are in the ages of from 80 plus to mid 90s. Our business model is going to be that none of our tenants will have vehicles. So there's not going to be much traffic from our tenants in and out of the property. The traffic impact from our staff will be minimal, especially because the time windows they will work on. Now, we are planning to hire at the very peak, we'll probably have about 50 staff members. And that is about, once we open the facility, it will take us about 2 years to ramp up to the peak level. But at a given time during the day, we will have a maximum of about 13 to 15 or 16 staff members who probably will bring vehicles. Now, most of these people will come into the building at 6 a.m. time and they leave at 2 a.m. So at that time, this is the quietest neighborhood. There's literally no traffic on that street at that time. And trust me, I live there, I walk every day over there, so I know it. So that traffic issue is not going to be significant because of our project. Now, I must recognize there are existing traffic issues because of the school traffic, and there are people who make a turn on the West Side Drive and they make an illegal U-turn or whatever, they make a U-turn over there and they go back on San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And that does create an issue, but this is an ongoing issue. This has nothing to do with our project. And I want to make sure everybody understands that. The other feedback we heard was people did not understand, and they just looked at just the surface design of the building. They did not understand that we are providing parking underneath the building. So the type of tenants we have and the staff we will have an ample parking for that. The parking needs are also for the visitors. But if you are familiar with these kind of facilities, the traffic from the visitor is literally insignificant. It is a sad state of affair. We would love to see more traffic. However, very few people visit, and even if they visit, that impact is on weekends, and we will have an ample parking to address the needs of those people. Now, another feedback we received was the noise impact on a peaceful neighborhood that currently exists. So there are two aspects to noise. One is noise once this facility is fully occupied. As I said before, and I've said it repeatedly, our tenants will be probably the quietest type of neighbors you can get. These are 80-plus-year-old people who are not going to dance in the street and run around the streets, So rest assured, that's not going to be an issue. Our staff obviously is working inside, and they're not going to make any noises. So that aspect of noise is, in my opinion, it's not an issue as we see our project to be, but happy to answer any question. Now, there is a second aspect of noise factor, which we will talk about, and that is related to the construction time window. So we are going to have a construction window of about anywhere from 9 months to 12 months. And we do anticipate some noise impact at that time, especially when we are excavating the land and for the garage and for the basement, there will be noise. But that noise factor will be for first 3 months of the project window. And our workaround on that is to control our workers' time, i.e., they should not start their construction work early in the morning hours. We should, once people have gone to their work, we should start our construction around 9 o'clock and make sure we finish our construction work before people start to get back into their houses. So that's the only noise factor that I am personally concerned about, and I'm sure our contractors team will be mindful of that, and obviously the city will provide us guideline for that. Now, the other comment that is a prevailing comment, and Cindy kind of alluded to that, which is the West Side Plan zoning for this land back in 1918 was designated to be a park. But over the years, that has changed to a single-family multi-unit facility. And the primary reason, as I understand it, and I can stand corrected, is because that lot size just is not big enough for it to become a park. There is a threshold. I think there are city's guidelines for park-like facilities, how much land should be there. So obviously that is beyond me. That's not something that I can address, but I can tell you this. We have invested a huge amount of capital on this project, and over the course of last 4 years, we have invested a lot more money in the design activities. So frankly, for us, that is not an option. That's not something we have even thought of. So. Now, the other concept, which is safety and security, again, going back to the first two topics on impact on traffic, parking issues, and noise, same thing. Safety and security is not going to be an issue with the type of facility we are proposing here. This is going to be a safe facility. Our tenants are going to be probably the most peaceful tenants one can hope for. We also received feedback from some of the neighbors that, hey, instead of building a residential care facility, build condominiums instead. Obviously, that is something we don't want to do. This is not why we purchased this land. But just to address, the issues before that, which I just discussed, they will be further aggravated by building condominiums. Obviously, we know there's an acute shortage statewide shortage on housing. And I have received a lot of recommendations to instead build apartments or condominiums. That's not what I want to do, but I'm telling you, those neighbors who are concerned about the traffic impact, parking issues, or noise factor, that will be compounded further with that kind of development. The other concern people raise, which we have tried to address to those people who have engaged with us, is the impact on the property values. As I said earlier, when you live in a city or a neighborhood within a city is measured based on the amenities that it provides. One of the best amenity our city of San Ramon provide is the quality of our schools. And that actually drives the prices of the real estate in the city. That is one of the key factors. Obviously, landscape and all other aspects, access to shopping, to other things, access to highway. Those are all the amenities that makes our neighborhood quite valuable. Now, when you add a senior care facility, that is an additional complement to our neighborhood. It is not a deterrence. It is not going to have any negative impact on the property value. Now, last thing is when we were talking to the homeowners association that is behind our property, they have some land ceding issues and they expressed concern what will happen if we build our property. Now, this is important to understand. We are proposing a underground garage. Now, this garage will be reinforced with structured engineered walls that will be consistent with the construction code. Also keeping in mind that we live so close to the fault line. So if anything, that particular land will strengthen the whole area quite a bit just because of the sheer parking garage and the structured walls that will be surrounding our property. So I think that concern can be addressed and will be addressed as part of our design. Can you go to the last slide? Now, these are some of the pushback and comments we received, but when you go back on social media, it has been actually quite pleasant to see people have been very thoughtful and they have really analyzed the whole package that Cindy has sent out and they have taken the time to understand it. Now, I've shared some of these comments on this slide. This is coming from a thread that got started on Nextdoor application by one of the neighbors, and they basically wanted to oppose the project, which I understand. But look at the comment coming from Susan Wright. It may be difficult to read through, but it probably is by far the most thoughtful response even I could have come up with, and I'm so thankful to Susan Wright. Now, I want to highlight about Susan Wright. When we had our first Planning Commission hearing in 2017, she was the loudest opponent of our project, and she spoke against our project in front of the Planning Commission. She wrote against our project to the Planning Commission and City Council. But when I reached out to her, she was at the time at the board of the Homeowners Association. So I asked for a meeting with the board members and the people who live in the community. And I assured them that, hey, this design that you saw will be changed and the next design will be consistent with their desires. It will have all the setbacks that you need. It will not be as overwhelming from the building size perspective and so on. And then over the years, we have kept them engaged. Susan Wright has been probably the most proactive neighbor that has worked with us. And she's a tough lady. She has pushed back so many times on so many different aspects, but now I can confidently say that we have converted her to be our biggest supporter. And we have done that with many, many neighbors like that. So while council members might have received, or planning commissioners may have received a letter or a similar type of letter from many, many tenants, we have many, many neighbors who are very supportive of our project. And what I'm going to do is I will package all of the feedback that we are getting from the neighbors, negative and positive. I will share with the planning commissioners and the city council members so that you can see that our neighbors are much more thoughtful and they do take their time to understand what is going on. So with that, I would wrap it up. I'm available to answer any question the council members have, the commissioners have, or anybody else on this forum, basically.
Okay, any last words, Cindy, before I ask for questions of staff, starting with the planning commission, and then we'll open up to public comment. But anything you want to add, or nope? I see a
No.
shake of the head. That's good. Okay, let's see. Any clarifying questions from the planning commission of staff? Ask each one of Commissioner Edwards, I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going to go right through it. Commissioner Marks, seeing none. Oh, we do. Wait a minute. There's a panelist. Okay, that's later. Commissioner Wallace, any questions? Or
I do.
Go ahead.
First question is, with respect to the park designation right now, has Parks and Recs offered an opinion whether they'd like to see that stay in the specific plan?
And that would be to Cindy, I assume.
Yes.
Sure.
Whoever wants to answer my question, I'm agnostic.
So this particular application has not gone before the Parks and Community Services Commission. The direction in 2011, at that point in time, when we did the general plan amendment, had several meetings with the Parks Commission. At that time, they made recommendations in favor to not amend the park designation in the general plan to residential, but ultimately the decision to change the park designation to the general plan was adopted by the city. We have not brought the amendment to the West Side specific plan to the Parks Commission as part of this particular process.
Okay. Second question. The applicant proposed a series of amendments to the West Side specific plan. There are 7, and then the city staff recommended 1, that's number 8. My first question is, on changes 1, 3, and 4 proposed by the applicant, are any of those necessary in order to change the zoning on this parcel to medium density housing?
Let me just get to which numbers those are. Hold on one second. So changes to the specific plan goals and policies.
Yeah, that's packet pages 9 and 10.
So number 1 is the change to the specific plan goals and objectives. Number 3 is the community design policies. Number 4 is also to the community design policies. And then was it those 3 that you were questioning?
Yes, and my question was, are any of those necessary in order to change the zoning on this parcel from parks to medium density housing?
Not particularly. They are suggestions that the applicant has made to amend the specific plan, ultimately in order to facilitate the development of the project. The change number 2, the land use figures change, would need to be amended. The change to the lot coverage and floor area ratio, which is 6 and 7, would also need to be amended. And then because the exceptions to the lot coverage would apply to properties and buildings of significant public interest, that would speak to the requested change in number 5.
Right, that's why I didn't ask about 2 and 4, 5 through 7. A question, in the staff report, it notes that there are perhaps one other property in the West Side specific plan area that might be impacted by the FAR and lot coverage changes. What area would that be?
That would be south of this property, close on Saramon Valley Boulevard. As you probably noted, the land use map in the West Side specific plan is really more bubble diagrams, so it's a little difficult to pinpoint specifically which parcels. But based on land use ownership, we can pinpoint that close to north of Forest Home Farms in that general vicinity where the Grace Methodist Church is currently.
Okay. Are there any other properties in the West Side specific plan area that might be considered a structure of significant importance or desirability, which is the language that's used more or less in item number 5 on the proposed amendments?
I think that's probably up to interpretation. Some may think that there are certain properties that are more significant than others. The one that would come to mind is Forest Home Farms and the Glass House in the West Side area, but some may argue that some of the other structures that exist in that area may also be considered significant.
Okay. Last question tonight. One of the features that the applicant has touted about the application is to incorporate the Harlan House into the design and structure of the assisted care facility. I've been in the Harlan House. It was about 8 years ago, and it's basically inside. It's a hodgepodge of various construction from different eras. It's not the way it was in the 1850s, 1880s, or the 1920s. And obviously, anybody who's been past there has seen what the outside of the structure is. My question is, in the current status of where the project is, who gets to decide whether the proposal to deal with the Harlan House really makes it an incorporation of the existing building into the structure, or it basically will only be a facsimile of what was there? In other words, that the way they're going to save it is basically tear it down and reassemble something that looks like it, rather than retain the original structure of the house. Who gets to make that decision as to whether that's really an acceptable structure?
Cindy, can I make a comment on this one a little bit?
Apparently you have. Go ahead, Sohail.
Yeah, so Mr. Wallace, this is a good question.
Thank you.
So we have been talking about this thing and what is the right thing to do with the property. And obviously all along working with Cindy and Lauren, we have talked about the integrity of the house. So one of the things we did was we engaged with the California Office of Historic Preservation. And we talked to them, we shared our plans with them, and we described the condition of the house as it is today. And they talked about the exterior of the building is critical for them from historic preservation perspective, just because of the Gothic architecture of the building. They care less about the inside of the house. So we got that feedback from them. We also engaged an independent consultant that basically was recommended by Office of the House Historic Preservation to conduct an independent study of what is the right thing to do with the project. And they wrote a very long report. I don't know if Cindy has attached that in with the package, but that also highlights some of the things we can do to make this house a candidate for at least California register. And to the extent if we do few other things rightly, it could be a candidate for the National Register.
Well, I wish you good luck on both of those.
Thank you. No, I
That's,
know.
That's all the questions I had tonight.
Thank you, Director, for not saying I have one quick question. Our last two commissioners, I'll ask if they have any questions before I go to council, is Vice Chair Alpert and Chair Kuznick. Not seeing any hands, I will go to our council members. We have a volunteer in Councilmember Perkins. You want to start us off? And I'll ask the others afterwards.
Yes, I wanted to know on your shift work with 40 to 50 employees, I didn't quite catch how many employees do you expect to have on site at any one time? If you divide that by 3, you get numbers of 16 to 20. But I assume that the graveyard shift is a smaller group than the midday shift. So what's the maximum you expect to have on site at any one time?
Okay, so as I said in my presentation, the nature of these facilities to ramp it up to the maximum capacity, we are talking about 24 months to 36 months period.
Right.
So it will take us 3 years to basically ramp up to the full capacity and then have sort of corresponding staff level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I said, there will be 3 shifts. Now, the maximum number of employees will be in that 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, although there will be an overlap of some other staff members that will work from, let's say, 8 to 5 or so. That includes our facility director, our vocational nurses. So we expect during the day, between the hours from 8 to 5, we'll probably have about 15 to 16 staff members.
Okay, that would include the kitchen staff, the maintenance
exactly.
staff, the nurses, the manager.
Yeah, so maintenance staff, just understand. So when it comes to landscaping, maintenance, these are people on demand. It's a new facility. Maintenance will be required when we are moving in and out of tenants, basically.
Okay, thank you. That was the question I had for now.
Thank you, Member Perkins. I'd asked Member Armstrong has any questions, or Sabina Zafar. Member Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you. So just to let you all know, I have a mother who is in assisted living right now. I've got a mother-in-law who's in kind of a home care situation with assistants, both in their 90s. So I kind of understand the significance of this type of project. I also recognize and value the deep historical significance of the Harlan House and the El Nido House, and the fact that we have a kind of a housing challenge, if you will, for our seniors, for our young adults, for our local workforce. But I'm also a resident, so I use some of these major roads all the time. Al Costa, for example, and San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And so I'm a little bit concerned about traffic, as I've heard expressed from some of the residents and some of the written comment that I've seen. So Cindy, you mentioned 2 tracks that we're going down. We've got the specific plan amendment and the CEQA analysis, and then also later on the project details that the Planning Commission will dig into. But with respect to these, some of the concerns I've seen about traffic, can you confirm that there's going to be a detailed CEQA analysis that is going to include a detailed traffic analysis of this proposed project or the specific plan amendment, especially in light of the fact that Mr. Siddiqui, the applicant, has talked about the 3 shifts and how he intends to accommodate some of the traffic concerns. That's just Cindy.
Yeah, so as far as the CEQA analysis, there will be a component of the CEQA document that discusses trip generation. I will say, just in general, because of the type of use that this is proposing and the number of beds, our traffic study requirements are based on peak trips. This type of this proposal does not trigger the peak trips requirement for a extensive traffic analysis. So that has not there. Typically, we have projects that may submit a separate traffic study if it triggers the level of service or peak trip generation. This particular project does not meet that requirement that's set in the general plan requiring traffic studies. There is going to be some discussion of traffic, but not, we don't have anything currently that is extensive like a traffic study would typically do.
I see. Okay. So this analysis will be more staff analysis by our traffic engineer, our staff on in the city, or as opposed to a consultant outside entity. Is that correct?
Yeah. The city has retained a traffic, a CEQA consultant who is preparing the environmental document. There are components of that traffic and circulation section of the mitigated negative declaration that will discuss how many trips are going to be generated with this project. And then there will be some general analysis, which will be reviewed for completeness by our traffic engineering division. And so there will be a review of that by the city as part of that CEQA analysis document.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, Sabina Zafar and then Vice Mayor Sridhar Barros.
Yeah, so Cindy, I had a quick question. How many facilities similar to what, you guys are laughing because I said it's a quick question. How many facilities similar to what we have today exist in San Ramon currently? Are any of them in residential neighborhoods currently?
I can name a few of them off the top of my head. I don't have the total number, and we can provide that at the next staff meeting. But the ones that do come to mind that are in residential neighborhoods would be Sunrise Care Facility on Bollinger Canyon Road is adjacent to just north of Crow Canyon Road. That's adjacent to residential. The Sunny Glen neighborhood has a residential assisted living facility there as well, which is generally surrounded by the Sunny Glen neighborhood south on El Costa. Those are the two that come to mind. There are a few other assisted living facilities that are being proposed both at Bishop Ranch and then just adjacent on El Costa Boulevard. Next to the hospital is considered a living senior care facility. Those are the ones that come to mind just off the top of my head. Two that I know of that are in residential neighborhoods and two that are in more commercial settings.
And what about the size? Are they about the same size, smaller or larger?
We can provide that information at a subsequent meeting, so we can do a little bit more research on that.
Thank you so much.
Both of those two that are in residential, I believe, are bigger than this. The Villa San Ramon is, I'm sure, over 100 residents, as is the one off on Bollinger is probably over 100 residents as well. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, where'd you go? I don't have your picture. Do we still have Sridhar with us? Did you have any questions? You're unmuted, so I assume you did.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Hudson. Cindy, I already requested this information, but I just want to make sure everyone on this call is aware of the info. I want to know the count of our senior population and the growth rate of our senior population within the community. Could you please share that information?
Sure. So the question that had been asked was the senior citizen population in San Ramon and generally what that percentage of the population is in San Ramon. Based on my research, as far as the census data has provided, the current population over 65 in San Ramon is about close to 11% of San Ramon's population. That's considering that San Ramon has about 85,000 people currently in San Ramon. And then historically, if you go back to the 2010 census, that's closer to the 7% range. And then as you get to the 2000 census, that's closer to the 6% range. So it has increased over the last 20 years. Population has also increased as well, but generally speaking, the current senior population age 65 and over is about 11%.
Thank you.
Okay. And the last question I have before we open up the to public comment, you mentioned early on in the slides, Cindy or Sohail or whoever wants to take it, a shuttle system. Is that the Go San Ramon and the pilot program, or what we're working at County Connection, or are you talking about a second shuttle system?
Well, let me address from our project perspective. We will have a shuttle service for all of our tenants.
Okay.
And for our staff members who are taking BART and public transit system. So we will have a dedicated shuttle for all of our tenants. We want to make sure they get to their doctor appointments, they get to their church services. If they want to go for shopping, or they want to go see movies, or they want to go for sightseeing tours, that shuttle service will be available to them from 7 a.m. till about 6 p.m. at night.
Well, let me help you out, and you don't need to go into any depth, but we've already done it at County Connection, and I think it's like $5. I'd check with, well, I'd start off with the transportation department in the city, and then get a hold of Melody Reeves, or in particular Ruby Horta at County Connection, because we've contracted with LAFTA, and the wheels will take you down here all the way from BART to City Center. And I think it's like an Uber Lyft type operation. You pay $5, and that's almost embarrassing. I'm the chair of the board, and I don't know what it is. So you better check with the people that do. But I think we've already worked out the system for you. And
well, that will save at least one head count for us, I guess. So
at least
definitely we'll consider that. We'll explore that further.
Okay, let's do this now. That we'll open up the public comment. I have right now 6 members that want to speak, and it's climbing. I got a feeling, yeah, I'm tempted to say let's just do 2 minutes on this, because we're going to have a lot of people repeat the same thing, and I have some written also, but let's try it for 2 minutes, starting off with the first person that's had his hand up for an awful long time, Randall Riley. Can you bring him in? And public comment is open. We're up to 9 speakers. Okay, Randall, I see a little dash through your microphone. Good, you're unmuted. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
My name is Randall Riley, and I have lived on Centennial Way since 2003 as a homeowner and resident on Centennial Way adjacent to the El Nido property. We object to any development on the El Nido property that increases traffic at the intersection of San Ramon Valley Boulevard and West Side Drive, in particular at the west entrance to Centennial Way. My wife and I have personally experienced numerous close call accidents at the west entrance to Centennial Way caused by high school kids and their parents making U-turns here. The 2 no U-turns this block signs installed on West Side in 2018 have not reduced the U-turns. The dangerous U-turns still happen regularly. One of our neighbors was an innocent victim when her car was totaled in 2018 while waiting to turn from West Side onto San Ramon Valley Boulevard. Any development that adds any driveways close to these 2 intersections can only increase the traffic danger. The West Side specific plan designation for the Harlan House property should remain as a park. No driveways or parking should ever be allowed on this property. Just so everyone knows, the Harlan House El Nido property has been listed for sale on Crexi.com since May 3rd, 2021. It's very clear that Sohail Siddiqui is in this for the money, not for the betterment of the community or the elderly, as he so professes. He lives at the end of Winding Creek Way, about a mile away. So this project will have no impact to his neighborhood like it will to ours.
Thank you, Randall. Greg. Greg, you come in.
Yes, Greg Carr, San Ramon president, and thank you, Dave. I want to commend Sohail and Rafia for this project. They are our neighbors. They're part of this community. They're not out of town developers. They should be shown every, kindness and assistance that can be given to them by the city. The fact that the project's been going on for 4 years is something I would urge the city council to look into. That's a long time. This project does do several things. Obviously, it provides a facility that there is a shortage need of. If you take 11%, as Cindy said, of 85,000, it's about 9,300 people over 65. If you take half of those, that's what, 4,600 people. There aren't enough places in our town to support them, or even a fraction of that 4,600. So it helps that, adds jobs. It takes that old house and fixes it up and puts it back into the condition it was in 1850, 1860. And I think it's an overall improvement of the area. I would urge you to approve the amendment after you go through your series of meetings and approve the conceptual plan of the project and get this project going. The only thing I'd like to add is that strip of property owned between the applicant's property and San Juan Valley is an eyesore, and for their project to be showcased, that needs to be cleaned up. And also, if you all have a chance, please read Susan Wright's comment. Very well done, articulate, and to the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Yip Chan?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm a resident at Greystone Ranch. So I saw the Sohail fresh up the comments from the neighbors. I want to say it's not a good representation of how the residents actually feel about this. Like, I just have a question, like, how would the city actually address the neighbors in the surrounding areas has direct impact of this new development? Say if over 100 of residents in the surrounding area have different concerns about this land to stay as a park, opposing the park to be turned into this high density residential with the concerns of lack of parking, increased traffic, COVID cases due to this this high density of residents, like 84 residents plus 50 employees. Also this disruption of the quiet neighborhood because of the construction and pollution. Like, how would the city take action to address this? Like, most of the people I talk to in the surrounding area do not want this, and they have sent in letters to the city to actually raise the concern.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is, I believe it's Antony DeAngelis.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Anthony DeAngelis, and like you, I'm opposed to this project. I want to specifically refer to the matter of feedback from residents. I'd like to say this is not something which should be determined by the applicant in terms of whether people are for or against it. Clearly, it's going to be selective in nature. The city council or the city should independently seek and evaluate the feedback. And I urge the city to commission an independent inquiry for this purpose. I also like to state this is a commercial undertaking to all intents and purposes. And any notion that it is done for altruistic reasons is misplaced. This project is going to cause a fair bit of inconvenience to the people living in the surrounding areas. This is something that the city should consider first and foremost as it seeks to decide on the application that's been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Call-in user number 2. You have the floor. 2 minutes, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my first question is actually for the architect. I don't know if they're aware, but recently the supervisors of Contra Costa County have passed an ordinance that going forward, any new construction must be green. So which means that the buildings cannot be powered by gas, but only electric. I don't know if the architecture is aware of that and if he is designing according to that ordinance and if enough electricians will be hired for this. This goes to with all the future ones that we are putting up. Also, did I hear somewhere there was another one going up, but I think it's by Sunset and closer to the lot. I'm wondering about the distance between the two properties. And for this particular one, I'm wondering how would they transport their, residents if they should pass. I think I heard underground parking. So are the underwriters also going to pick up underground, and are people going to see that, or are they going to be isolated? And also I'm wondering, we have now so many of these senior homes. I've never been dead before. I'm not sure, what are the process of if somebody, passes, and the pickup procedure, do we have enough undertakers to accommodate? And if not, for some reason, then what happens to the bodies? And also I'm wondering, many are probably going to be religious, right? Is there going to be any religious ceremonies or noises, related in the area? I'm asking this for the neighbors. And also I'm wondering if we are going to have an ordinance saying that these properties must have how many percent reserved for SR seniors. Otherwise, I can see we're going to have all the Fremont, Milpitas residents here, and then our own residents probably have to go to Milpitas or somewhere else because there isn't going to be enough space for them. So I highly recommend our staff to please put in some sort of ordinance that stipulates how many percentage must be, current seniors from San Ramon. Thank you.
Okay, Jim Blickenstaff. Jim, you have a unique perspective. Weren't you here the last time we tried to buy this?
Yes, I have a little historic background. So here I go again, right? I've looked this over and I was okay with it the first time around because of the way it was being sensitively developed along with the historic park aspect, which to me is still in place. The term park, I think, related to the historic aspect of that older building and recognizing the need to take care of it rather than a skate park or a walking trail or something. So it relates to the historic aspects of this property. And I think the way Sohail has addressed it continues that connection. So I'd say that the only really thing now that you want to make sure of is traffic for the benefit of the residents, benefit of the neighborhoods, because they bring up some questions that need to be answered, whether it meets peak periods or not. You want to look into that detail to resolve it and make sure people understand the mitigations will be in place for traffic. Because I think otherwise, if we try to take that subject too lightly, it could work against you in terms of getting the acceptance of the project you're looking for. And the only thing I would diverge from is the architectural aspects that the Architectural Review Board had mentioned, because this house has this historic significance, and that's recognized. You also have to recognize it in the complementary architecture of the extended structure. And to the extent you want to differentiate from that, I think you're losing the point. You don't want to differentiate yourself from history. You want to embrace history. So to the extent in the early part of the public process, you can go back and start to look at blending that architecture of the facility with the representation of that time period from the El Nino house, whatever, is very important. And also in terms of structure, sure, texture, color, similarities. The more you differentiate from that house, the more you're missing the point of the opportunity to enhance that complement of the historic aspects with that same kind of feeling and look in the facility itself. And so I don't want you to kind of put that aside. That's something that early in the process, we should have the options of looking at these other architectural choices that blend more harmoniously with the building we're preserving the basic structure of. So that would be the key thing that we want to pay attention to in my mind. And other than that, I think it's at least as good a project as it was 2 to 4 years ago. And I think with the sensitivity of Sohail, because I've got to know him and paying attention to details, he's not going to ramrod anything through like maybe an outside developer would, just because they can maximize their profit line. He doesn't do that. So I think you're in good hands here with the people that are putting this together, and with the proper review and studies, I think you can come back with something that'll reinforce the positive aspects of it for the extent of the neighborhood and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. KK, please take 2 minutes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have been here. I'm one of the neighbor here living in the community, not half mile away, not a mile away, just in the community. So I've got few concerns. Kids walking to bus stop. I've got young kids. And I don't think I'll be very comfortable once the property and the business stood up if the permit is allowed, because there will be increase in traffic and there will be unknown people. And I don't think I'll be comfortable sending my kids to bus stop all on their own. That's one, because there will be visitors there, right? There will be emergency vehicles and there will be first responders that will create noise, and that will degrade the community. And the way it is right now, it's a quiet community. We're already under traffic stress and increased risk of accident due to high-speed traffic on Century Oak Street Court, with folks doing construction and ritual activities being held in unincorporated area at the end of Century Oaks Court. And I've already reported that to city, and I've also asked the engineering department to consider putting a speed bump in there, because the traffic is getting out of control here already. And then majority of us residents who live in the community, majority of us, we don't support this project. And then I'll end up with my personal experience. A couple of weeks ago, I was walking my dog in the morning, and while crossing the street, West Side Drive and Century Oaks, my dog got slightly hit by a car. People don't yield. And this is a quiet neighborhood. We've got a lot of kids here. And then there will be residents in the community, in the proposed project here. If permit is approved, there will be kitchen staff, there will be visitors, there will be janitors, there will be security folks, and there will be first responders, and there will be vehicles, and there will be shuttles, and there will be a lot of traffic, and that will impact the livelihood of this community, especially a lot of us who have young kids who go to elementary school. We are really, really concerned.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Harry G.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, good. So I am totally opposed to the project. Like KK, we are neighbors. We live within the community. I do a lot of walking within the streets. I walk my dogs. I run in the streets. And there's been many instances where a car is almost taking me out, either coming out of the townhomes that are right by Mr. Siddiqui's property, or coming out one of the other streets, or during school time when there's many cars going up and down West Side Drive. And in this project, to everything that KK said, I'm not going to repeat it. I only have 2 minutes. I can just say ditto to this. Will increase the traffic at all hours of the day in and out of that property, coming in and out of it. I want to say that Mr. Siddiqui certainly paints a very rosy picture, but I believe that he has stretched reality to suit his message. I question the level of engagement from the residents. I have gone door to door the past couple of days since the public hearing came out on Century Oaks and Chaparral, knocking on every door, talking to residents, other than 2 residents who were not at home. Every single resident, bar one, was totally against having an assisted living facility within this property. And there are other people that have gone down other streets doing the same thing. We really expect the city council who represent the residents to really hear the voice of the residents within this community. You know, whichever way you look at this, and everyone that spoke before from Cindy Yee to Mr. Siddiqui himself mentioned the operations and ongoing business operation. This is a commercial facility and it's for a high profit facility too. In any way you look at it, this is not in any way a residential property. It's a commercial property and it's going to impact the residences within this community, and it takes away from the characteristics of the residences and the layout of this community. You know, it seems like there's a whole lot that's been crammed into a very small lot, and many amendments that have been made in order to make this thing happen. And it feels like we as a community are bending over backwards to make this thing happen, when there seems to be other projects, similar projects elsewhere in the community that will make this thing work without there having been so many amendments.
Please wrap up, Harry.
Okay, this again, I question Mr. Siddiqui's statement that there's sufficient parking within this property. I sat in on one of his calls some time ago, where, every question I asked him about parking, he did not have an answer for me. I really asked the city to look at the underground parking, how many there are there. He mentioned, if I got it right, 8 to 15 people during the peak, during the day shift, when overall he talks about 50 people total. Over 3 shifts, that's more than 15 people at any one time in that facility.
Okay.
So to end, just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, if I can, I really want to implore the city council and all the staff to really assess this project correctly, because the number of residents who are against this within this community is high, and it's something that needs to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to, is it Bria Fisher?
Yes, hello. Hi, my name is Bria Fisher. I live on West Side Drive. I have 2 small children. I'm about a half mile away from the proposed project. I'd like to offer a different perspective. I'm actually a practicing physician. I am opposed adamantly to this project. It is a healthcare facility. Having worked in healthcare for a number of years, no one seems to be mentioning the tremendous amount of waste, chemicals, trash, laundry, noise and light pollution that a healthcare facility will generate. This is an inappropriate area to place a healthcare facility. You're directly across the street from residential areas. I support the people in the community who have voiced concerns for bus stops, small children in the area, and the overall inconvenience and danger that this proposal really brings to a very quiet and calm neighborhood. So I really ask City Council to decline this project and to place it elsewhere in San Ramon. Thank you.
Thank you, Bria. Satiram?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you guys for taking the time. I'm a resident in the Centennial Way, and I am adamantly opposed to this project. I'm not going to repeat my same points that have been made, but we do have small children. They walk to the bus stop. And also to the point of Mr. Sohail, if you are spinning this as a great investment for the community, I recommend going through a nonprofit rather than a for-profit business in a residential institution, or perhaps moving it to the Winding Creek Way where you live, very quiet behind the scene. And that's really my point here. Also, we're building a coalition, and we implore every single member of the City Council, especially our council member Sabrina, to hear our voices. And especially for an unregulated commercial facility to be in a residential area, it is extremely troubling to all of us. And like other neighbors said, you guys are rushing through the process. Seems like you guys have a cozy relationship that's ignoring the concerns that we have. And also, I've lived near a old folks home before. There is ambulances that are called all throughout the night because at the slightest sign of danger, they're not medical experts, so they have to call 911 by their policies and procedures. So we're going to be disturbing our residents, our children, because there's going to be high traffic, and then 3 shifts. When I read the proposal, you guys are working 24/7. You have 3 shifts. So if the morning shift, swing shift, and the grave shift are constantly pushing each other, of course there's going to be high traffic coming in and out. If the morning shift starts at 7, that means the swing shift starts at 3. That's right smack in the middle of 2 school schedules. So of course there is going to be traffic coming in and out. And Mr. Siddiqui is right. People do break the law coming in and doing illegal U-turns. So your solution is to contribute to that traffic and make that worse. Please, everybody, as considering the mayor, considering the Sabrina, our council member, represent us and our voices, and please have an ethical approach to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda Clifford. Melinda? She went to the bottom. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I just was able to get unmuted. Thanks so much. My name is Melinda Clifford. Thank you very much. I am been a resident of San Ramon since 2012. I've owned my house, which is in the townhome community, Oak Creek at Greystone Ranch, directly behind this proposed facility, and I'm adamantly opposed to it. I agree with what everyone else has said. There is an extreme amount of traffic already. I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. And when I'm driving my son to school at Cal High, there is always so much traffic already in the morning. I walk this neighborhood daily and there are children at play all the time. This is very much a residential neighborhood. And this would not be like a residential neighborhood. My property values will go down if this gets built. The neighborhood feeling will be lost. I definitely don't want to be hearing ambulances all throughout the middle of the night. I literally live right next to it, so I would be hearing that all of the time. But the traffic is really the biggest concern. There is an tremendous amount of traffic already, and this will just add to this. I definitely think that even if it's not within the guidelines, that a traffic study should definitely be done for this. If you do choose to move forward, which I really hope you don't, I also agree that you guys should really poll the residents, because everyone I've spoken with is adamantly opposed to this. It will take away from our neighborhood. And also, I wanted to say that I think you guys should do a demographic poll, even if the elderly population has increased in San Ramon to 11%. The demographics are definitely Far East Asian and multi-generational families, where a lot of people live with their elderly family. They don't put them in assisted care, and I don't think it's fair to say that 11% of people over 65 are going to be the people that will, be using this facility. I voted for you, Mayor, and I'm really, really disappointed in this project. And I hope that you guys definitely do not put it here. It sounds like a good project, but not in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, Wendy Yellen.
Unmute. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Mayor and council members. I've lived here since the homes were new in '97 on Century Oaks Court. And I'm almost in tears thinking about what this would do to the neighborhood and our beautiful neighborhood, our quiet neighborhood. I've been here, I've seen generations come and go. It's safe, it's beautiful. And everyone keeps mentioning children, and I don't have any children, but I have a dog, and I walk twice a day, every day through the neighborhood, past Mr. Siddiqui's property. It's an eyesore. It hasn't been maintained the whole time he's owned it. It just sits there and is just something that I'm embarrassed when people come visit as it is. Why he hasn't done anything with it till now, I have no idea. But let me tell you, I run into probably 80% of the population is elderly when I walk. So we have elderly people walking in our neighborhood every single day. And the way people drive and the traffic and the increase in population in San Ramon, these 20 some odd years I've lived here, has been so tremendous. And I really plead with you, council members, to understand, you know, we vote for you. We put you in office. Please, please, please hear us. This is not the right thing. It sounds like a beautiful place, but not on this street. The street doesn't have room for it. We're already crowded. And it just is not the right place. Please, San Ramon still has a lot of other areas that someplace like this could go. Mr. Siddiqui is very nice. He's made very nice presentations. I've attended his presentations and I wish him all the best, just not on this street. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy. Mary Lou Oliver. And then Bill Harlan. Still muted, Mary Lou. There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Planning Commission. I am not going to repeat what Jim Blickenstaff and Greg Carr have said. I agree with everything that they said. I want everybody to know I am in my 80s. I'm one of those people that is looking around to see what kind of facilities are available. And there is a real dearth in San Ramon. As far as the ambulances are concerned, I currently live right near one of the fire stations, and I never hear ambulances at night. When they go out at night, they're quiet. If it's anything, it's just a little blip when they get to a four-way stop or a traffic light. So I think Sohail has done a very good job with his listening to what people are saying. When I moved here, it was the first subdivision built north of Montevideo Drive. There was nothing between Montevideo Drive and my property. I have watched this whole San Ramon build, and most of the people, if I had said the kinds of things I heard tonight, they wouldn't have a home here. So I ask that you give Sohail and Rafia due consideration. I think it's a good project.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Bill Harlan, haven't seen you in a month. We dedicated the library out at the school. Almost in. I'm dragging it out for you, Bill. Can you hear me? You're still muted. Probably important to hear from somebody named Harlan about the Harlan House.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead, Bill. Yes.
I came to San Ramon in 1985, given the task of starting a new college. We've got a new college now. Dave and I were at the ceremony that celebrated the 15th anniversary of that college. At about the same time, I got involved because of my name, my background, the fact that my great-grandfather was raised in that house back in the 19th century. I was also sucked into this whole ongoing soap opera of the Harlan House. And so I've been a very interested spectator all of these years. I served on the city commission that was sent out to look for places on city property to move that house. And we did a thorough examination of the entire community. We spent months going over every possibility. And while all of that was going on, the house deteriorated. Much of the damage done to the house was wanton and conscious and part of a political effort. And now I listen to people worrying about walking their dogs and having cars turn around on West Side Drive. Joel Harlan, who's built that house originally, brought his grandmother, Mrs. Duncan, who was 93, across the plains in a covered wagon in 1846. That spirit, that attitude has survived all of the years of degradation to that house, and the Harlan Family Association of the United States of America, some 200,000 strong, is really behind this plan. We think it makes sense to use the history as a springboard to deal with our current issues in the community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bill. I'll ask for Malak, and then I'm going to kind of look at some faces here. After this next speaker, do you want to take 5 minutes? I got here when I'm looking for Sabina.
Yes, let's do
Okay, this will be the last public comment, and then we'll take 5 minutes to come back and finish them off. Malak.
If you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I live in the area. I have done so since '97. I oppose the development due to the traffic noise and the 3-story structure. Maybe if it was 2, I'd feel better about it, but I just don't feel about the 3-story blocking the view, and it just doesn't seem to fit in the area. I also voted for you, Mayor, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Malak. We're going to take a 5-minute break and be back. Usually we take it about 2 hours into a session, and it's 6:58 now. So let's try and get back. Well, let's make it 7:05. See you back in 5. just about the witching hour.
So Christina, the message says City Council has convened to a closed session. Just making it clear we had not.
No, my apologies. I thought that was a different slide. The city council was taking a break.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Just didn't want anybody thinking we were planning something.
No, the city council was not in closed session. They were taking a 5-minute recess.
Okay. And I will tell people that are listening, I can see that there's one phone call and there's probably two. One of them kicked off, but they'll be back. I'm taking the Zoom or the hands raised first. So whenever if we get our total count back, I'll start off with, is it Brigitte?
All the council and commission are here.
They are, let's do it. Okay, we're back in session. Next speaker will be, excuse me, Brigitte. I believe it's Vijayan. If we can bring him, there you are. Okay, you have the floor.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. So I'm Brigitte Vijayan. I live right across the property. The very first home you see right across the property. And if one person is going to get affected by this project, it's going to be me because I live just right across. And I'm living in this community for like more than 3 years, beginning of 2019. Since that day, I have been observing this property and I have been attending the open houses. From the very first open house that I attended, whoever came to that open house, they were opposing it. And to talk about the traffic, right? If I come to my porch, I can see the traffic on San Ramon Valley and West Side intersection. And I have been seeing before the pandemic, the cops are hiding there to catch the violators, because during the school time, people take wrong U-turns, and so the cops were standing and they pulled them over. And I have been also noticing a trend that when people use my driveway as an alternative, they come to West Side and use my driveway to use the U-turn. And I have a 7-year-old kid. My neighbor has 3 young kids. We are all really concerned about these activities happening here. And also, this property is not being maintained. Over the years, I have been seeing the windows are broken, doors are broken, people are jumping over the fence, and it is badly maintained. And during summer, I have been seeing reptiles running across and coming to my properties. So I have been seeing all these things, and I have spoken to at least like 50 to 70 people in person or knocked the door in last few days. And everybody is opposing to this project. And I have been hearing their concern to educate myself what this is going to bring to the community. And nobody has given me a positive feedback about this. So since I am staying right across this property, I want to voice my concern and request the city council to take appropriate action to stop this project, because I have serious concern as other community members have. Thank you.
Thank you. Harish.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for giving me this opportunity and to talk to you. Right at the outset, let me begin by saying that I'm a resident of San Ramon, and I'm a resident of Centennial Way, which is very close to the project. And I want to vehemently oppose this project. In addition to echoing all the concerns that my fellow residents have raised, I want to highlight the fact that no matter how you slice and dice it, this is a commercial activity. And I'm sure Mr. Siddiqui would also agree with this. This is a commercial activity, and it's happening in a residential neighborhood. What are the guidelines for have a commercial activity in a residential neighborhood? One thing that brought me to this community several years back was that it is a quiet neighborhood. It's a wonderful place to raise a family. I have small kids, and commercializing this property would completely change the look and feel of it. I would also urge the council members and the mayor to pay particular attention to one of the residents who has a medical background and the concerns that she's raised over the biohazard disposal and the risks that it poses to the immediate neighborhood. When it comes to considering the feedback, I strongly urge the council members and Mr. Mayor to give a higher weightage to the feedback from the immediate neighbors. It's very easy to pass comments when you don't have skin in the game, but we have skin in the game. We are the ones who will be most impacted by this project. And I thank you for your time.
Okay. I thought we'd already heard from Satiram. Am I wrong? Yeah, we did. We only do it once. Let's go to Carol Rowley and then Joyce Carr.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Carol Rowley, 52-year resident of San Ramon. All of the concerns that people were saying is probably what I felt in the beginning, because we only had a few houses on our street. And so I am so proud of what the city has done now. There's something for everybody, something for young children, something for the other children growing up, volunteerism. But really, a lot of the seniors don't have a place where they can really, their families have to take them other places. I've worked with Sahil just on a voluntary basis. I'm president of the San Ramon Historic Foundation. We've been looking for a place where to put the El Nido house for over 20 years. We have not found a place. So Sahil bought the property, and he has done a yeoman's job of reaching out to the community. He is an active listener. He's not through listening. Tonight he's taking in all your comments, and he will really look at things clearly. The city will come through and look at the traffic mitigation. I was there on Sunday for about an hour, and I only saw 2 cars. Now, I don't know if that was an unusual day or what, but it was very, very quiet, and the only noise was a neighbor that I thought should have been picked up by the police because he was going very fast. And that wasn't anybody coming into the community. It was one of the neighbors. So I would just want to urge you to please see this project out. Sahil has put a lot of time and energy into it. The reason it's falling apart is because it should not take 4 years for a decision to be made on whether to have this project go through or not. He's been going through he's been working with the city. He's been working with the Historic Foundation. He's been working with all these other groups. He's a resident here. He really wants to hear what everyone has to say. And I think we need to at least let him go through and see what he has in plan for us, because I think you'll be very, very surprised. I was at a facility in Danville when I had my hip replaced. There were very few cars. It was very quiet. It was too quiet for me. And so I can't imagine that this the residents there, bothering the neighbors. Once it's built, I think you'll be very pleased, and he'll be having open houses. He'll be inviting you in. He'll be a good neighbor. He's not going to flee the area and go to another city. He lives in San Ramon. He wants this to be in San Ramon. And the Historic Foundation unanimously supports him because he's done a great job with this. And we don't want that building to be any more dilapidated than it is. The building needs to be repaired and brought up to its stately original state. So thank you very, very much. And go Sahil, you've done a great job.
Thank you, Carol. Our next speaker is Joyce Carr. I want to let 2 phone call listeners know that I do see you there. I will ask for you after Sandeep. And I believe it's Pat Boom and Abram Wilson. But Joyce, you have the floor now.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
I want to say that I, number one, agree with everything that Carol Rowley said tonight concerning Sohail and the hard work he has put into this project. And as I've been listening to everybody, something came into my mind, and that was, with the state and how they're requiring this amount of housing in each city, et cetera. I would certainly, it's probably going to be one or the other. I would by far rather have the home, the senior home, than I would condominiums with all those people driving. You want to talk about adding traffic? All those people in those condominiums are going to be driving in and out. You are better off with the senior home. My mother, for 5 years, was at Sunrise in Danville on Diablo Boulevard. And it was just like Carol said, I couldn't believe it. When she said it, I thought, my gosh, that's exactly what I was going to say. It was very quiet there. I could always get a place to park in front. I was there daily. I always went after teaching all day. My sister was there. We went on weekends, all the holidays. We were there all the time. It was very quiet and very nice. It happened to be next door to a grammar school, and it was fun because the kids would come over and at Halloween time and walk around in their costumes, whatever. It was fun. Also, something else, it would be a nice place for young people to work, to really appreciate seniors. I think sometimes young people can actually be a little afraid to talk to them or whatever. They're wonderful. They're fun. They're great. My daughter and my niece spent hours over there with my mom, also talking to all the other residents. So again, it'd be a lovely, lovely, lovely place as opposed to having more housing in that exact same spot. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Joyce. And then I'll take Sandeep and then the 3 phone call in listeners. Sandeep, you're up.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Hudson. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I agree that San Ramon definitely needs affordable facilities for seniors. So I think that's a great idea. I live with a 90-year-old mother in my residence, and I understand this. But I think, as somebody else said, that most of the Asians live in multi-generational facilities or multi-generational homes. So absolutely. I do want to ask the city planning a question. Does the city have provisions, budgets, or plans to accommodate 84 plus people in this 0.7 acres of land? What I mean is, you will definitely have to build infrastructure, roads, sewage, water stuff, water pipelines, and ER vehicles. Do we have that kind of budget? And if we do, what is preventing us from buying this back or using it for its intended purpose? Just a question over there. I think the idea is really nice. It's just the location may not be the most perfect location. That's just my thought. I just thought I'd put it out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see if we can get 3 of the phone call in listeners. And then I'll go to the last 818s in IR and in the night. Can we get in one of the 3 phone call in listeners? Christina, I have to dial *9, or can you bring one in? Oh, I just realized, do you know that 2-minute warning is not in my view? I just realized it was next to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It said I can unmute and speak. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I appreciate it. I think there's a disconnect here. Everybody is not opposed to a senior living care facility. And by everyone means the 60 or so names that I've submitted who are in objection to this.
Can I stop you for a second to identify yourself? We don't have a name for you.
My name is Iram. It's okay. IRAM as in Mary.
Okay.
So if I may continue, hopefully you're adding to my time, because that takes away from my 2
I didn't even
minutes.
know we had a timer until just now. I just moved over. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that I can have some time to speak. So I think there's a disconnect. People don't mind that there's a senior living facility in San Ramon. We just don't want it in this location. We have small children here, including myself, not one child, children. I know more than 100 people in this neighborhood. I'm on Centennial Way. I know everybody's names, faces, who they have coming to visit them. I know their children. I know their dogs' names, and if they have, how many cats they have. So we are a community here. In fact, we have parties here. We get together that are COVID friendly and pre-COVID. So I just want to make sure that you understand nobody's opposed to the facility. We just don't want it in this location. Further, I just want to make sure I'm opposed to it. I want the designation to stay a park. And right now, this is what we're voting for. With that said, I think you're not considering the additional traffic of these 15 to 24 workers at a time will bring, and they need to take their breaks and lunches, take care of their own personal needs, as well as any family members that they have. And that's not included in that 6 to 2 time frame. Additionally, there are people who work from home, right? Who have a work-life balance where they don't constantly have to commute from work, and you're forgetting how that's going to impact the work from home people, as am I, a work from home, full-time mother, and a full-time worker. So I just want to make sure it sounds like the questions that were asked earlier sound very politically motivated, and we are noticing that. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that public officials such as a mayor, vice mayor, our council members, we are allowed to know how much revenue or how much money that Sohail might be putting in your pockets to have these questions in his favor. Lastly, as a community, we've reached out to many neighbors over this past week with the notice of hearing, and they don't know what's going on, or some people haven't checked their mail. Some people are out on holiday, and I think this is just something to notice, that this just happened in major holiday session. You guys need to consider that those 1,200 residents that received notice did not receive the notice, and they in fact don't know what's going on right now, and there needs to be more outreach.
I
I'd
need
like
you
to
to
know
wrap
how many
up on
people
this. You're
voted.
about 4
Oh,
minutes.
I can wrap up. I'm a fast talker. Yeah, you don't like what I'm asking, and that's fair. You don't have to. But there are 1,200 people who received these notices, and we want to know who they are because they don't know what's going on. Lastly, I just want to make sure there were many, many opponents here. We want to know the number of how many people have opposed, because there were only 3, those small little 3 people that Sohail probably paid. Those are probably the 3 yeses there, but we want to know how many no's there are. So that's it. Bye.
Okay, I've got 4 phone call-in listeners besides the 818. I was going to come back to them. These people have been on since almost the beginning. It was 2. Is there any way to bring them in, Christina?
There's only one now that has their hand raised. So we may have more calling users, but only one is requesting to speak under public comment. So
okay, can we
I'll let them in
that
now.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time. I want to oppose the project as well. I live in the neighborhood. I've been living here for the past 4 years. I don't want to repeat every single point, but I do want to highlight that this property was recently put up for sale. I believe the property was purchased in 2017 for just a little over $1 million, and the property was put on sale for excess of $4.2 million. The listing was taken off last month in November. So I find it confusing because the developer, Sohail, had mentioned he's trying to do good for the public community and the poor little old people that don't have anywhere to put their heads down. But the financial gains and the financial incentives that he has takes away from that point. Why was the property for sale? That's a legitimate question for the city council and the members on this hearing to ask that question. Why was it quadruple for a highly unregulated commercial facility to be in a residential place? I just find it very hard to digest. Also, has anyone dealt with contractors in the past? Do they ever complete the job early or on time? If you're proposing 12 months to complete this project, rest assured it's closer to 2.5 years. That creates lots of traffic, that creates hazard for small children, that creates just the collision aspect of it. We might get into a car accident. It's an inconvenience for heavy machinery, pollution, and also I think somebody else touched on that there is going to be ambulances at all hours of the night due to this medical staff not being fully able to take care of the needs of the elderly
I need you to wrap up.
people. Sure. So due to all those factors, I oppose this, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to the same question I had, Christina. I've got I'm getting emails that Pat Boone wants to speak, Abram Wilson. There's no way to bring them. This says total 3 phone call, and that's it. They may have to do it by email or something like
They
this.
have to do *9 on their telephone if they're calling in. Otherwise, they need to use the raise your hand button.
Okay.
But
on a computer.
And are they watching via YouTube or are they logged in?
Oh yeah, in fact, I think that's why Carol Rowley's got her hand up again, but I can't tell one person they can't get in a second time and then bring Carol in. But then if I don't bring her in, she knows where I live. I could be in trouble here. Let's go to IR and see if we can figure it out. In the meantime, IR, you have 2 minutes.
IR has an older version of Zoom, so I will have to promote them into the meeting.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Iqbal Rashid. And thank you so much for allowing me the time to speak. I live right across the property, across the house from Bridget. I strongly oppose this project like everybody else who's been on this call, most people who've been on this call. There's nothing personal about this. It's just something that I'm very much concerned about. What I hear is that this is more like a commercial project on a residential lot. And it's just, conflicting to me. Also, with 84 residents and their staff, how is this a medium density housing when there be so many people in this small area? And also, if it's possible, can we do a quick hand count for whoever's on the call to see who's opposing it, who's not opposing it? We could do screenshots to see if we can have a quick hand count to see who is on the call and who's opposing it. And my last question is it possible for this plot to remain as a park and not be converted into a residential facility or whatnot? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I know why Carol's calling because I just got the call that couldn't get in, called me. And we've got a little problem with that. People are just going to have to write in comments if we can't get them on.
One of the names you have mentioned is in the meeting, so they will need to use the raise your hand button. Okay. So for those in the audience that would like to speak under public comment, you must use the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hit *9 on your telephone to indicate that you would wish to speak under public comment. So the names that you did mention, they are in the attendee, so they do need to hit the raise your button feature on their computer.
Okay, I'm looking. Yeah, I know Pat just got into me. Okay, Pat, you're in there. Hit *9. Let's go with Madhu first and give her a chance to get in. I don't see the hand raised. And she'll move up. Madhu?
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mayor. And that's him, not her. Thank you.
Oh, did I say her?
You did, but that's okay. I won't take it against you.
Oh, I was thinking of Pat. I'm sorry, Pat Boone. Go ahead.
No worries. Let me start by stating that I'm not clearly not in support of this project, and at this location, wherever otherwise it is fine, but at this location I'm not. Let me now request the Planning Commission to try and understand residents supporting this project. When those residents moved into this neighborhood, and how far do they live from the subject site? The freedom of movement will be obstructed for sure, as everyone stated with this commercial property popping up. I am concerned with the limited sunlight that I will have access to. I have a question. Has there been a sun shadow study to understand how structure impacts immediate neighbors? Has there been studies on noise pollution from compressors and generators? Any hazmat concerns? I for sure know that neighborhood nearby will become assembly areas or waiting areas, something that as people with some common sense even can understand. I would urge City Council to do a thorough review and not be biased in assessing the situation and coming to a conclusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me just leave Carol to the end. How about Uma? Then Raji.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Sandeep Dakras. I'm a resident of San Ramon. I've been here for about 6 or 7 years. I live right behind the said project El Nido. There's no point in repeating all the objections that have already been raised. I'm just calling in to communicate that I object the project. If there's any kind of voting, any ways to communicate that I'm against the project, I'm willing to do that. For all the different reasons, right from traffic to disturbances at night and various other issues that have been highlighted. I've actually thought through this. Most of them have been covered, so nothing new to add. So I'll give away the rest of the time. I'm just calling in to highlight that, I'm opposing the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Raji.
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I just want to go on record here just to mention that I'm strongly opposed to this. I'm right here in the neighborhood and I've been here for more than 13 years. And I do not have young children at this point. My children are grown up. And I do understand the value of having a senior assisted facility here. But at the same time, I think it's very important for you to consider the traffic. And I also, I think I am strongly weighing in the different aspects of what I've been hearing, especially what the doctor who had medical practitioner had come, talked about the garbage, the waste that will be generating here, the health concerns that is there, the pollution and all the other factors. So once again, I don't want to go through all the points, but I strongly support the people who are opposed to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Rajiv Verma. And Carol, I can't let you in and then start. I'll be starting back all over again. I can only do these once. So I have talked to Pat. Abram's probably going to also have to send in a letter. Anyone else that we can't get in, please send a written letter. This is just the start of there will be a continuation to the Planning Commission meeting. So Rajiv, you've got the floor.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rajiv Verma. Thanks for giving me the time to speak. I'm opposed to the project. And in addition to all the points that have already been raised, I would probably urge the council members to understand the finances of such facilities and how it would be run moving forward if it was to materialize. Because obviously, I listen to news and I have seen a lot of senior care facilities kind of going by the wayside and the quality of the facility going down because of various reasons, shortage of labor being one of them and shortage of, care facility staff being others. I would also like to understand what would be the affordability of such a facility for seniors who may be kind of looking forward to such a facility in San Ramon, and if this facility was to be approved, then one should have a fair estimate of how much such a facility would cost any person who may be looking forward to having it in the neighborhood, because these points not only are relevant in today's time, but I think moving forward it would also be relevant because if it is not able to, if it is not affordable, if it is not able to attract the amount that is kind of envisioned by the developers of this property, then it will cause the facility to fail in the future, and then eventually cause a lot of kind of bad things to happen as a side effect. Yeah, thank you.
I have to call your time on this. I was a terrible timekeeper this time. I apologize. Next time I'll slide one over and realize the clock's running in the next set of pictures. We had a lot of attendees speak tonight. We've got a lot of information. We also have some written communication or comments. The last I heard was at least 25. It's all available to everyone. You can read that. I would say that we probably add that we saw on the screen tonight, the comments from Susan Wright, that on a different way of sending in writing, but we got that one also. And I'm looking to see if there's any more. There isn't, so I'll close the public comment. The matter is before the council and the commission for some comments before we will continue this item to the public hearing on January 18th. But is that a hint? All of a sudden, Martin's in my 6 pictures that I do have here. What is a pleasure? Council, you want to start this off, or you want the commissioners to start it off again? I see a panelist. This will be the first to tell us if it's council. Oh, Scott Perkins. We'll go with the council first. Your comments.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for all the public comment we received tonight. And thank you, Sohail Siddiqui and your team, and Cindy and your team, and all the work that goes into this. I want to make a couple of comments based upon some of the public comment. And I think one of the, I think it was Joyce Carr said about ambulances, and I happen to know this from a previous project, that ambulance don't respond with sirens every time. They do when they're in heavy traffic and they need to get the attention of the drivers. But I can assure you, if something happens at midnight, the traffic is light, and the drivers of the ambulances do not turn on their sirens unless they're coming through like Pine Valley and San Ramon Valley Boulevard. They might burp their siren at a traffic signal. But you know that they also have on board a device that turns the signals red in all directions except the one where they're going to go through green. So ambulance noise isn't an issue. Somebody made a comment about we're rushing this process, and somehow we've been working on this for over 4 years. We've had a couple of different proposals. One of them involved demolishing El Nido and saving some of the pieces for display at some other location. So we've been working on it for four years, and it's going to have at least, and I would expect that the Planning Commission is probably going to have more than 2 hearings, but it's going to have at least 2 hearings in front of the Planning Commission and 2 more in front of the council after that. So that's 4 more minimum. I don't consider that a rushing a process. You may be late to the dance here, but it's not rushing the process. Let's see, traffic. I would encourage, and I use just the word encourage instead of insist, but I would encourage a little more in-depth evaluation of the traffic impacts to that neighborhood. From Mr. Siddiqui, I think it would work in your interest to do that. Sunshade, there was a sun shadow study done. It's in the staff report. Business plans of private businesses are the private business of the owner. They have to make their ends meet. They have to pay their debt. They have to pay their employees. They have to pay for their supplies. That is not the prerogative of the city. We don't go to Target and say, what is your business plan? We don't go to Sunset Development and say, what is your business plan? That is not the prerogative of the city. One of the comments that I absolutely object to, I want to make this perfectly clear. When you accuse the council or the commission of corruption, of taking money from developers, I challenge you to bring your evidence to the District Attorney's Office of Contra Costa County. And if you're listening, I'm going to give you the phone number for the District Attorney's Office, 925-957-2214. Take your evidence. They have the district attorney, they have an Office of Public Corruption. They took care of the county recorder / county clerk. He was convicted, or excuse me, he pled guilty. They even the district attorney of the Contra Costa County was found guilty of corruption. So there is nobody. Oh, and they also did a county supervisor. So a council member would not intimidate the county district attorney's office. So if you have evidence that someone on the commission or the staff or the council is taking money from developers to approve projects, please take your evidence to the district attorney's office. I want to support preservation. I want to try and find a way to retain and restore the El Nido house. There have been projects in the past that would demolish it. There were projects that would move it. Those fell through. And I think we ought to give some deference to a developer that has created a plan that will. Now, lastly, I want to say I generally support this project. However, and this is important, I don't want to make any specific comments that would hinder the Planning Commission in the conduct of their hearings and their deliberation. They have a duty to deep dive into this project to make sure it meets the needs of the city and it conforms to our plans, or that we adjust the plans so that it does conform. And I want to encourage the Planning Commission to be thorough. I mean, they always are. I shouldn't even have to say that because they do a fabulous job. They really do. But don't consider that the comments from the council tonight, we want you to just green light this thing and rubber stamp it and push it through. To do your due diligence, you always do. I want to congratulate Mr. Siddiqui on shifting the working hours so it doesn't impact. Some of you know, I live about 1,500 feet away. I probably live closer to this project than some of the people who commented tonight. And I travel San Ramon Valley Boulevard daily. I travel it at 8 in the morning. I go to work traveling southbound on San Ramon Valley Boulevard past Montevideo. I see those people U-turning, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, the line to turn left onto Montevideo from San Ramon Valley Boulevard goes up past Morgan. I see it. I know it. And I know there are people who come down and then make that illegal U-turn so that they can turn on to Montevideo. So I know that traffic. But by making his shift schedule at 6 a.m., so there's some people arriving a little before 6 and there's some people leaving a little after 6, they won't be impacting the school schedule. The 2 o'clock one, there are some schools that get out a little after 2, and hopefully anybody that's leaving on a shift is leaving shortly after 2, so that they will not be impacting because I know some of the elementary schools are there. I was really surprised that someone was talking about their elementary school children and going to school. There are no elementary schools on that side of San Ramon Valley Boulevard until you get all the way north to Bollinger. And I would sincerely doubt that anybody, those kids are probably going to Neil Armstrong. That's where my kids went to school. And it's too far away for elementary school kids to walk. You don't walk them to school from the west side of the freeway to Neil Armstrong or Walt Disney or Country Club. You take them by car. And if you're lucky enough, you might be able to take them through traffics in the bus system. But that rang hollow, taking kids to elementary, little kids going to elementary school being a problem. That's my comments, and I really look forward to the Planning Commission doing the things that they do, and they do so well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Let's stay with the council first, then I'll go to commissioners. Councilmember Armstrong, any comments? If
Nothing
not,
further other than what I already said. Thank you.
Yeah. Sabina, any comments?
So I think one of the things stood out to me that this project took 4 years. I know we've had several meetings on this and we've had some change. So I don't know what can we do to improve the process so that it's more streamlined and in a way that it doesn't take 4 years, right? We make a decision, even though some people said it's rushed. I think it's overextended. Initially, maybe we set out a template, and that was one of the reasons I asked how many, existing senior facilities do we have in neighborhoods? So maybe kind of use that data to give direction to new developers as they're coming out with some of the plans here. I did hear the neighbors loud and clear as well. And I know it's always change is always hard, and things when they come to your neighborhood, it's not always very comforting. I would again encourage us to put on a hat where we want to be inclusive in our neighborhoods as well. And I guess one question I did have, Cindy, was, would this meet any of our RENA numbers or no?
No, it's through the mayor. The type of care facility that's being proposed would not count towards meeting our regional housing needs allocation. That's the number that the state assigns to the city for housing unit allocated to for production, and these types of units would not count towards our obligation for housing production.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Sridhar?
I was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Well, you said okay.
But again, I think to just not repeat, but to double click on what Council Member Scott Perkins also said, we do want this to be looked at thoroughly. We do want to make sure we do our due diligence, and the Planning Commission has always been very detail oriented on examining the project. So again, I don't want to add too many comments here because this is going to go back to the Planning Commission. And I think that is a recommendation tonight, that the Planning Commission explore this and then give us their recommendation back to City Council. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't sit there, Sridhar. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. Thank you everyone for joining us on this call, especially on Tuesday evening, sharing your concerns, providing your feedback and thoughts on this project. I would like to thank our city staff, especially Cindy, for providing clear and detailed project details on this one. So thanks again, Scott Perkins, for giving us the foundation on our conversation and provide the feedback on this. So I think pretty much he shared what exactly the council thought process in this, that we would definitely like to see our exceptionally well talented planning commission to look into it thoroughly and vet it through. And also there are many more meetings are coming where our concerned residents can join, share their concerns, and also share their information and data. But one thing I clearly hear that the major concern, two major themes that I hear is about traffic and safety from the residents. So what I heard is they are facing this problem as of now, even without the project. So if we need to look at those things, let's make sure we address those things, especially the one which I keep hearing is about the U-turn and accidents. If we need to take care of those things, even without this project in the process, within the idea itself or with the plan. So I think that that's one concern that we need to take care from the residents. And also we need to continue to share all those project progress details with them and mitigate their issues and concerns as going forward. So once again, I'm very confident about our planning commission, who are very talented and deal with these kind of projects many times. So let's continue to review this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would just add a couple things. One, I know traffic, not traffic congestion, came up quite a bit, and there were some problems with traffic maneuvering. I'm not sure that this project would even generate enough trips to go to a higher study. I mean, I don't even think it generates the 50 trips. I don't know if it's 50 trips an hour a day. I forgot what it is, but we have it with, I think TVTC has to do it, SWAT does it. I mean, we have our demands that we've agreed to, but it just isn't there. The other thing, gosh, I wrote so much stuff down here, I want to leave it alone. There seems to be this feeling that if we just deny this thing, nothing's going to happen there. That is not the world we live in anymore. I mean, between this 5th and 6th cycle, which, by the way, Cindy told you the truth. Right now, you can't count any of these numbers towards RENA. I don't know if you had somebody living there permanently, that might change that. There are some of us that are taking a very serious look at going to HCD after this cycle and changing some of that stuff. And there's going to be some arguments made because a lot of us are not happy with the 6th cycle. But I want to be clear about this. The world has changed. It is because of things like this where the neighborhood comes out and they say, we don't want it. And the council responds and say, okay, we don't have to have it. That the legislature is just continually adding legislation that makes it tougher and tougher to say no, to the point where they're about ready to just say yes and issue the permits themselves. I have seen more legislation on the regional committees I'm on. You can build in open space, you can build whether the ordinance says you can build or you can't build, you can build at golf courses, you can build at shopping centers, you could build at a church. I don't know if we'd have the same result on that appeal that we had 2 years ago with the legislation that came through, and it's down to the point where we almost have to do no parking. And with this shuttle system that we already have, I mean, he's got a pretty good argument. I think what I want to stress is the state has made it clear that you will provide housing, not just plan for it, not just approve it. Now the onus is going to be on the city to get the grading, the sticks in the ground, or when the first review comes through in 2025, you do not want to be in last place because it's going to change things. I know I was listening in on a planning commission meeting, I think a month ago or something. Somebody asked, does AB 330 apply? The answer is yes. I don't care what the legal answer is. The answer is yes, because if it doesn't, there'll be a 331, a 332, and a 333 until it does. The state wants to see building, period. I got 28 appeals that all got denied for very good reasons about housing that gave pretty much the same arguments I heard tonight, but HCD and the state are not listening. Do you like the project? I heard that one. That doesn't seem to matter anymore either. You better have a specific reason why. If you change this, then it would be okay to do the project. But transportation, I am 99.9% sure will never fly on this project. You only look at peak hours, and it is what the total transportation issue would be. And between 6 and 9 and 3 at 6 in the afternoon, this is not going to change things. I know we heard about schools, and schools are open 180 days out of the year, but this is the least use that I could think of for traffic. I mean, I think even a park might generate more than what this does. And I spent a decade with my mother-in-law and my wife's sister, and seeing what the amount of traffic was to these places, plus my own mother. It just isn't what is going to generate a traffic issue to the point that you could deny a project. I want to say, most importantly, if you turn it down, which is what people were asking us to do tonight, or turn it away, the pressure to build somewhere else in the city to make up the numbers that we're getting hit with between 2023 and 2031 will be very excessive. And I know the people said, I don't mind this going in if it went somewhere else. Well, I know of a few residents that don't want it somewhere else, to the point where they might ask us to be the first person to sign the recall. Again, that 2025 number is ridiculous. In 30 years, I've never seen a stronger position for the developers. And oddly enough, 30 years ago, we were working on this Harlan house. So it's, I know you got your hands full, Planning Commission, but I can tell you that the days of just saying, I don't like this project, deny it, are over. If you don't like that one, the state's going to do something else there. It's for real. Scott and Sabina both have their hands up. Scott, take it first, then Sabina, and then we'll go to the planning commissioners.
Something you brought up a very good point, David, that the state is requiring increased building. They're taking away the land use planning aspect of cities and our authority to say yes or say no. They are, if given what's likely to happen at the state and legislature, they would take this property from 14 units per acre and they would double it or triple it. And the height limitations would likely be, would just disappear. They can give, variances and everything to a developer who says, I'm going to put 15% affordable into this place. And so instead of 11 units, you'll end up with 30 units and it'll be 50 feet tall. Yeah. So you may not like what you see, but you'll hate what would happen. Lafayette turned down a 60 unit project, and they're now looking at a 300 unit project on the same property. Mm-hmm. They thought by turning down a 60 that they would get soccer fields and parks and things. They're going to end up with 300 units on that same parcel. Be careful what you turn down. That's it.
Sabina?
Yeah, I was just going to, point to the same theme. And, sometimes land use decisions are tough in the city. And what we're dealing with right now is how do we balance the quality of life that we want to give to our residents, as well as the numbers. That's why I asked about the RENA numbers, the 5,111 homes that we want to find a way to build in San Ramon in the next 8 years. And that's the planning we're going to go through. So if we either have a project which is a senior living, which is not, in my opinion, high traffic, or there could be 40 homes in there. And that, when we start talking about traffic, that's the conversation we can start having then. So, some of it is just, these are difficult decisions. These are tough things that we deal with. But as we think about land use planning and what best to put in the neighborhoods as well, how do we really truly balance what are the requirements coming down, like the mayor mentioned, like Councilmember Perkins mentioned. Not that we're not hearing all the neighbors loud and clear, not that we don't understand, but as elected members, we've also got these obligations now and these regional housing numbers, which the city council has to meet. And how do we continue to best plan our city where you get the best of both worlds, right? We build housing, which doesn't generate as much traffic, versus if this was to be all a housing complex, if you will, with multiple homes. So I think those are some of the things I know the Planning Commission is also going to look at, that those are the decisions we're going to be balancing as well. So just want to make it very clear and transparent to everybody who's here that understanding how some of these things happen and how this land use planning is happening, it's, I want to make it as transparent to all of you as well, to know that, we're not thoughtlessly talking about development and really paying attention. All of us, all 10 of us are paying attention to how we do this best. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Sabina. And before we go to the Planning Commission, I'll leave you with one line: financing is not funding. If somebody's got the money in hand to do the project, they just move to the top of the list. And I don't want to be a planning commissioner from that point on, because there just is virtually no way to turn it away. Okay, let's go planning commissioners one by one. Corey Edwards, anything to add? You're going to be doing it again in January. You want to wait till then?
No.
Rick? Oh, go.
No, I would actually like to make some comments and honor the fact that we've been asked tonight to provide some feedback to staff on the going forward process here for the specific plan amendment. I do think that it's important, in view of the comments that we heard tonight, that we are not making a decision tonight about whether to amend a specific plan. We are not making a decision tonight about whether to approve or disapprove this project. So I suppose that I'll just start by making some general comments about the proposed specific plan amendments. We have some historically significant buildings in this specific plan area. I think that it is vitally important that our specific plan recognize that and encourage preservation of that resource and of these buildings. These buildings are irreplaceable, and I am very saddened, frankly, to have read the staff report and to have heard that this building, this very, very significant building, has been allowed to deteriorate over a period of very, very many years. It is very sad to me that our community has not done more to make sure that this building is preserved, and the other buildings that are in the specific plan area. So from the perspective of amending the specific plan, I would like to just advise staff that I generally am in favor of the amendments that have been proposed. In terms of action items, I'd like to have us give some thought to what does it mean for a building to have significant public interest. That seems to be a little bit loose to me, and I'd like to tighten that down a little bit. I am very much in favor of adopting and including the affordable housing ordinance into the specific plan as has been submitted by staff. And then there's a couple of things that I wanted to just add. One, I'd like to echo Councilmember Zafar's comment about streamlining process. We have a lot of hearings on projects of this nature. I think that we do better in a community if we can do some streamlining. I think that having a joint meeting like we're having tonight is one way that we can do that. And I definitely agree with Councilmember Zafar that the process needs to be streamlined. Whether we vote the project up or we vote the project down, we're doing our community a service by doing some streamlining. And I think that that's particularly important on a project like this, where we have a resource, we have a building that is deteriorating. That this building is not going to it's not going to be in better shape if it takes us 2 years to go through this process. It's a wasting asset. And I will just take a moment to commend the project applicant for coming forward with a plan to move and preserve this building. Through my professional life, I've been involved in moving 2 historically significant buildings. It's amazingly complex. I can tell you from personal experience, I was amazed at how quickly we were able to physically move the structure and how intact the structure was left at the end of the move. But it is going to be a complex project. There's going to be a lot of work that needs to happen here. And frankly, I think the only way that that will ever happen is if there's some other financial use that can be made of this property in order to fund that work and that expense. So thank you for coming forward with the plan. I have no idea whether your project ultimately gets approved or not, but I appreciate the fact that you've come forward with the plan, and we'll look forward to hearing more about the proposed specific plan amendment and about your project in the coming months.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Rick March, and then Eric Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There really are 2 issues here. One is the land use. What is the appropriate land use, and is this the appropriate land use? And the second is really the design. I'm not going to comment too much about the land use issue because this is still an open matter before the Planning Commission, and I don't believe this is the forum to stake out a position. I do want to set this up so that when the items come before the Planning Commission, all of our concerns are addressed, at least all of mine. And I'd like to start with, I have some concerns about the reduction of development standards for a third property that I don't know anything about. It's not really clearly located. Cindy tried to do so, but I think the commission needs to get a much better grip on where it is and what would be the impact of reducing the development standards on that property, given all of what might be built on that property. So I would like information about that. Maybe there's a way to just simply reduce the development standards for senior-related housing, which consists of everything from life care to assisted living to nursing care and other options. But to leave it wide open like that on a developable piece of property, I don't know what we're really allowing in the future. I have some concerns about the language generally that the applicant is proposing for the amendments. And again, I'm not opposed to reviewing a change in the West Side specific plan, but as Commissioner Edwards pointed out, in item, I think it's number 1, item 5, item 6, and item 7 of the proposed language changes, there's language that says of importance to preserve or significant public interest. Those are debatable terms. for any planner who's ever worked the zoning counter, when you have language like that, you are simply setting yourself up for an argument. Who determines what's important? Who determines what's significant? If we do amend the West Side Plan, and again, I'm not suggesting that we will or we won't, we need to define these terms very clearly so that we're not opening up a discussion and a debate and a potential decision allowing something that we didn't really intend to do, particularly on this unidentified third property. From a design standpoint, if you look at plan sheets 10 and 11, you can't really tell the colors and the materials that are being used on this property. Right now, to me, the colors on plan sheet 10 and 11 do not relate well between the two buildings, between the older El Nido house and the newer building. So I'm asking the staff, there must have been a colors and materials board that was submitted for this project that the staff has reviewed. Prior to the January 18th meeting, could you please put it in the rotunda of City Hall, give planning commissioners a heads up when it's there and several days to come by, and let us review it. If the commission is inclined to approve the project, certainly there needs to be a strong design relationship between the two buildings. Frankly, at the moment, I don't see it. I think those are my basic comments at the moment. Again, I understand the neighborhood's concerns. I'm not saying right now that I share them, but we certainly have heard these concerns in the past. The bigger question that we need to ask is, what's the overall best interest of the city? We all live in neighborhoods, and every neighborhood contributes to the overall performance of the city. And let me explain that a little bit. If you live in the Neil Armstrong neighborhood, you have people from well outside your neighborhood every day, 5 days a week, driving into your neighborhood, parking, letting their kids out, and in the afternoon coming back. You're contributing to the need for us to provide a school in the area for children. I don't see that as being terribly different than a neighborhood allowing a senior living facility to come into the neighborhood with, in this case, a minimal amount of traffic and potentially parking on the street for limited periods of time, especially in the off-peak hours of the day, as your contribution to the overall benefit of the city. Every city neighborhood has to take a broader view of what's happening in their neighborhood and how do they affect other neighborhoods. And it just seems to me that this is about the most minimal kind of impact on a neighborhood that you can possibly have. And again, compare it to any elementary school. Not only do they get used 5 days a week, 9 or 10 months of the year, but when sports are in season, like Little League or soccer or lacrosse, on Saturdays as well. And everyone in that neighborhood that is affected by the senior facility who has school-age children sends their kids to those schools. And as Councilmember Perkins says, those kids don't walk to school. They get driven to school, given the location of the school and the arterial street that would have to be crossed. So without saying that that's my position, it's something that I would ask the neighborhood to think about and talk to us about when we get together on the 18th. So Mr. Mayor, those are my comments at this time.
Very good.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Eric?
Well, first of all, I want to assure the city council, I'm sure they were trepidatious about this, but the planning commission will do its normal independent review of the evidence and reach its own decision. So you don't have to worry about that one. In general, I agree with a lot of the comments that Commissioner Edwards made. I agree with her about the inclusionary housing ordinance. I just have some questions about how useful it's going to be on the west side. I agree with the comments that Commissioner Marks made. In particular, we're proposed to make amendments to the specific plan that not only change the specific plan, but they're in derogation of our zoning ordinance for the type of land use that's proposed for this plan. I would like to have from staff sort of a larger view as to what the impact of doing that might be, because the impacts of that would be spread across the entire West Side plan. So I'd like to have some idea of what the unforeseen consequences of that change might be. Everybody who has talked tonight, whether they're for or against the project, has brought up the issue of traffic. It's clear that there is a baseline at which a traffic has to meet before you do a traffic study. Usually, I think it's been mentioned, it has to be trips per peak hour. So let's cut to the bottom line right away. Let's have the city traffic engineer give us in writing a report which says whether or not this proposed project is likely to generate a formal traffic study, and if so, why and what type of study. Let's deal with the traffic issue up front and decide it one way or the other. One of the things that came up when we had the concept review back in 2019, and I went back and looked at my notes from that meeting and also the material that we got from the staff for that meeting. And basically the project back then was pretty much the same as it is now. And one of the issues that came up was the shadows that might be thrown on the neighboring townhomes because of the size of the building, 35 feet tall, and also the mass of the building as well. Now, I saw there was one page where they referred to a sun shadow study. I would like to have a little bit more formal report that really sketches out what that really means and what the impact would be on the townhomes. I don't believe the building would throw any shadows on the homes across West Side Drive or farther up on the west side, but they definitely could have an impact on the townhomes that are adjacent to them. So I would like to see something a little bit more formal in writing that we can look at to make a decision whether the impact of that is such that requires a formal study or maybe some potential changes to the project itself. That being said, we'll be back next month dealing with this, and we'll see what happens then.
Thanks, Eric. Vice Chair Alpert, do you have any comments? And then we'll end up with, if you believe that one, Chair Kuznick, you know that mayor's got a thing or two to add, but go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Not to be too redundant with, I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I'll echo thank you to the City Council for having such trust in us. I don't think we'll disappoint you when we get this for our own. I want to just remind people that tonight we're talking about a specific plan amendment, not a specific project. And while the project was the trigger for us talking about a civic plan amendment, there's been a mismatch between the general plan and the West Side Civic Plan for, a decade. I think, Mayor Hudson was on the Planning Commission when we put together that West Side Plan. So this has been a long time coming that we have a long time coming where we had to reconcile these two plans. And I think the opportunity to update the plan, make it consistent between the two is a good thing. And I'm looking forward to having that done. I want to echo Commissioner Edwards' comments on historically significant buildings, and they do deserve special attention. Also, when it comes to the language in the proposed specific plan amendment, I also made a note that there's this third property that we really do need to have a good understanding of what the impacts could be. And so that when we make the updates to the civic plan, we're happy with what the plan will look like. I have no doubt that when we start talking about the project and we get to look at the mitigated negative declaration, traffic, parking, size, scope, noise, smells, everything will be addressed. We've done it before, so we'll do it again this time just as well. And then as it relates to the inclusionary housing ordinance, when we do update the plan, I think that's a good thing to ensure that the standard affordable housing, inclusionary housing ordinance is applied throughout the city. So again, in summary, the civic plan amendment, looking forward to the 18th of January when we get to look at it in more depth and have more detailed discussion. And at some point, start to talk about the specifics of the project. But tonight, I think this was a really terrific overview. I want to thank all the presenters and the commenters who gave us lots to think about over the holidays. Thank you, Mayor.
Well stated, Gary. Last 2 cents, 5 cents, whatever you want to put in, Jean, we'll give it to you.
Great, thank you very much. I just want to echo the comments that others have made before me, and I just have a few of my own. I think one of the things that I found really important as we are in these meetings is the role we play with our community in helping them know more about what we do and how we do it. And so I think tonight was really important for the members of the community who sat with us in this meeting and listened to our comments, and really I hope that our comments tonight are informative and help you to understand more about the process that we go through. We do take this very seriously, and we also know that our role is to represent all the citizens of San Ramon. So my first comment has to do with, I'm going to put on a slightly different hat, is my role as a liaison with the Transportation Advisory Committee. And to the neighbors in this area, that is an awesome place for you to take your traffic concerns. We have a whole department that just deals with traffic calming measures. And if you didn't know that, let me encourage you to reach out to the Transportation Department. They're lovely people and very responsive to the needs of the citizens, and see what they can do to help you in the short term. You know, I think you could maybe make a case for a stop sign, but I'm just a planning commissioner. Secondly, I just like to remind people that one of the things that as we are trying to reach our housing numbers is the concern that in a place like San Ramon, where we do have a population that is getting older, one of the things that is concerned is that houses are not turning over fast enough because people want to stay in them because they don't have a place to go. And so, you know, 20, 30 years ago, when you got a little bit older, you would downsize, you would go someplace else, and your little starter home would be somebody else's little starter home. And that's not really happening. But if you have an 11% of your population that's getting a little bit older, this is an opportunity as we talk about trying to make our town friendly to young families, people trying to get those beginning homes, those starter homes, that this is all part of the process. And so, you know, this is taking a larger picture of what's happening in land use in our town. And so, you know, that's an important concept as well. I would also like to point out that we heard tonight a phrase, well, we didn't hear the phrase, but I'm going to add it, public-private partnership. And that is something that we hear a lot right now in the planning department and in projects. And this idea that your municipalities can't do it all, and that it's perfectly okay to be in partnership with a private owner to help us do things like preserve, you know, create parks, or preserve, in this case, a historically significant building. So it is apropos to our current trends in municipalities, which is this public-private partnership. And so, you know, I don't want that to go unnoticed. And I would also agree with my commissioners that the language that some of these amendments is for my taste a little rough. When you have a sentence that ends with senior housing and care and affordable housing and the like, my school teacher red pen is poised and ready to help us correct and make that sentence a little more appropriate. So, but I trust the staff will use their firm guiding hand and help us come up with language that is more appropriate for that specific plan amendment. So I do look forward to it. And I, again, to all of you who have continued to listen into this meeting, and to my fellow council members, thank you for your comments. We do take this role as commissioners very, very seriously. And so you can be assured that we will be going through both the language for this specific plan amendment and all the other details before a decision is made. And we appreciate all the public comments tonight. We have heard it. We've also received the written comments. We take that very seriously as well. So you are being heard, and we take this all very seriously. So those are the comments that I had. on this particular without getting into too many details about how it goes. I also just want to remind that, when we had to look at a different senior housing project, we're also on the commission, people who've had to deal with this again with our family members. So, we take this very seriously. So thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and that wraps up my comments at this time. So
Thank
you
you, Jean.
do get the last word.
No, I think, Rick, you're unmuted. Is that just you wanted to go ahead?
It's only because I keep forgetting to mute myself.
Okay, I thought so. Seeing no further hands, taking another look, I will move to continue the public hearing to the Planning Commission meeting scheduled for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. Do I have a second?
I can second.
Second, Zafar. Discussion on the motion. I just would add to staff that there were suggestions tonight. I'd highly recommend you do the pallets. Rick, you can tell them what you were talking about. The transportation issue, I think, is still a little bit up in the air as far as what people know. Knowing the Go San Ramon program probably would help and how it works. I think the hours of the employees, you may want to take another look at again. We divided it in thirds, and I don't think these people are going to work 7 days a week, but I just don't think there are going to be that many cars there. That's my points. Anything else? Seeing everybody ready to that all important roll call vote, because the Planning Commission is in on this too. You get to vote. You sure, Gary, because you're unmuted. You got Mark's disease? Okay. Seeing no further hands or discussion, Christina, are you still there? I got to go to the other thing. Please give us a roll call vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Vice Chair Alpert?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Councilmember Armstrong?
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Veros?
Yes.
Mayor Hudson?
Yes. Thank you one and all for tonight. That's a 10-0 vote. Unanimous. Everybody wants to go home, but we aren't kidding anybody. Nobody leaves and it's over. We just start thinking about all the things that we've heard tonight. And it will ratchet up on January 18th, and we'll keep going forward. But this is how we end up with good projects. And I don't envy the Planning Commission any more than I envy the council, because the world's changed and everything's different. It's like we're relearning this stuff. But I think we did a good job tonight, and I think the public will be out January 18th. And I wish you luck and keep up the good work. Thank you all. Good night.
Happy holidays. Bye.